bring Sean. Hey, and welcome to episode number 92 of Killer POV. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G, from Icons of Fright. Drinking beer to my left.
I wouldn't call
Budweiser.
It beer. I call it Budweiser.
Really. You guys got Budweiser.
Elric Kane.
Well, it's $4.95.
Listen,
Ew.
he's
On my way here.
he's paying, so I'm not going to question it.
Exactly.
Welcome, Elric Kane. How are you?
I'm good. This is my last day where I have a class right before this show.
Right, you've been racing
The last
here
like 4
from
weeks
school.
have sucked. I've been teaching at Relativity downtown, teaching a film class, and then I have to bust ass to get here. And by the time I'm here, I've talked for 3 hours about movies. So I'm already burned out by the time I get here. So this is the last
As
one
if
for a
that's
while.
really an issue. Come
Yeah,
on.
really.
As if
You don't
can't go
shut
another
up.
3.
Well, at least today's topic's a little out of my wheelhouse, so I'm going to learn more than I'm going to talk today.
That's going to be exciting.
For me to not be talking as much yet. So.
Yes. And also Rebekah McKendry, Fangoria.
Hello.
Welcome. All right.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm actually really excited because I ever since we started the show, I wanted to tackle this topic of conventions because, again, and it'll be interesting to hear Elric's perspective because for me and Bekah and our guest, who we'll get to in a little bit, it's kind of, I think it solidified my fandom of horror.
Definitely.
Physically going to a convention and meeting people and being in that world and realizing, this is before the internet, so you realize, wow, there's other crazy kids like me that are into this stuff. So I've always wanted to talk about it, and we've got the perfect guest for it because, it's evolved so much since we were kids in terms of how conventions work. And I don't understand that side of it, but our guest does. And we'll be able to kind of talk and see how things kind of evolved over the years.
Yeah,
but,
Oh, sorry.
But
I'll
no,
save it. I'm
save
saving
it.
it for the con
We wanted to have
talk.
Chris on since we started. And so today we're going to be very
and he's
excited.
not going to be on today, thankfully.
We're excited because he won't be here.
But we'll get to that in a little bit. Just really quickly, as always, let's start with what we've seen this week.
Yes.
I don't have much. I only saw one movie, so let me get it out of the way right now. But a Scream Factory just put out the Robert Englund version of Phantom of the Opera from 1989 on Blu-ray. And actually, I'm a little biased because I did the interview with Robert for the disc for the special features, even though they forgot to credit me again, Michael Felser. But that's okay. It's every once in a while it happens. I know it happened. I was there. But no, I actually did rewatch the movie. I haven't seen it in a really long time. And,
I've never seen that one.
I'm really fascinated by it. I actually really appreciated it. I appreciated it this time because, when it came out, it was 89. It was kind of the height of like Freddy popularity. I think part 5 was just about coming out in 89.
And I remember that it was really weird because me as a kid at the time, I was maybe in like 6th, 7th grade around that time. I wanted it to be scary, like Freddy. And when I turned it on and it was, who plays the lead? Jill.
Oh, Jill Sholin.
Yeah, plays
Popcorn and Stepfather. Yeah.
Is in it. And when, she was awesome at everything, but it was very kind of formal. And then when he showed up and he wasn't Freddy, they still made him look burned and everything. But I remember being, as a kid, kind of like, oh, I wanted it to be Freddy. And I need to rewatch it again.
Yeah, it's kind of a gothic romance, or that's the take that they go with it. And it's definitely, there's a lot of interesting British actors in it. I forget his name off the top of my head. The father from Shaun of the Dead. Bill Knight. There you go. He's in it.
He's a good actor.
There's a lot of interesting people in it. I remember when it came out, my disappointment was because they really tried to sell it as Freddy. Like he was Freddy, now he's the Phantom. And I thought, because this was the height of Freddy mania, it was hard to distinguish Robert Englund as anything other than that. So anytime he laughed or cackled and he's kind of got burned makeup, I just saw Freddy as a kid. I was able to appreciate it more now as an adult because obviously I'm not in, there's no Freddy movies anymore. Right. And I could kind of sense the subtleties in his performance. And actually the makeup's really, really good.
Was this a Tobe Hooper film?
No. This was Dwight Little, who had directed Halloween 4. So this was like hot off the heels of that movie. And, that like this Phantom, instead of wearing a mask, he kind of has a Jack the Ripper thing. So he kills people and takes their faces off and literally sews them over his burn marks. So there's like a lot of neat little effects things in it. And it kind of goes back and like it bookends in modern time, or at least 80s, and then goes back to to a period piece where the Phantom story was told. And I think it's just fascinating. It's not a great movie, but it's not a bad one either. I think it's an interesting version of the Phantom. And, the documentary on there is really interesting. I mean, the reason Robert did it is because it was intended as a 2-picture deal. And he was more excited about the modern day Phantom doing, because it would have been Phantom of New York, which is where the movie's bookended in the 80s. So that was the movie he really wanted to make. And it was like, well, we have to tell the origin and do that before we get to that movie. And it just didn't do well. So they never got to make the sequel. But I think it's interesting, and
that's the problem with every Phantom adaptation, and there's been a bunch, from Argento to different, because they set them in the past. I think that's where they fell. I think you'd have to do something completely modern and less formal, like you're saying,
like Phantom of the Mall,
less gothic.
Stage Fright kind of did that.
Yeah, there's a way to do it.
There's
a way to do it, and I think that story would be more interesting. Phantom of the Mall,
Phantom of the Park.
There you go.
Yeah,
if you can rock it like Phantom of the Mall, Eric.
Yeah.
But I do think there's probably a modern interpretation that could really work with the right director.
Yeah, and I would like to see that, but I still think this is interesting and it's worth revisiting if you haven't in a long time, just because of, again, Robert's performance, the effects, and I mean, it's just the vibe of it in general is kind of neat. So I dig it. Scream Factory puts it out on Tuesday the 17th.
And I will challenge you, that is not the only film you saw, young man.
Oh no,
yes.
but I mean, that we saw together. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what we're going to talk about?
No, but I just thought, exactly. When you say I only saw 1 week, you've finally been ushered into the world of Duke Mitchell.
Are we going to talk about it, guys? It's not a horror film.
Doesn't matter.
No, Grindhouse kind of comes
really
up.
I consider it. I'll
It's
say
definitely not horror, but it's definitely within the world.
Tell us the story.
It's
What's
very
the story
important,
of Duke Mitchell?
though.
Well, I've talked about Duke Mitchell before when I saw Gone with the Pope last year. Gone with the Pope was a lost film. There's basically an actor who was in a duo like Dean Martin.
He was with
and
Sammy
Jerry
Petrillo,
Lewis.
right?
Yeah. So it was basically a copy of what Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis were doing, and they got shut down pretty quickly. They made one movie called
Bela Lugosi versus
lots of different titles. Yeah, the Brooklyn Boys, the Brooklyn
Gorilla.
Anyway, they were in a comedy act. I stayed for that one last night, and it's brutal. We left after like 10 minutes. It's not good.
They showed it as a third. They added it.
But it is cool because the first line, he gets up and walks up to the, hey, I'm Duke Mitchell. And you're like, and he looks amazing. I mean, he's gorgeous. He's like this amazing looking guy.
So he's
like,
a lot younger?
He's like 25 or whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, so they were a comedy act. They got shut down. They got sued in the way that you can sue people in Hollywood, as in, hey, if you keep this act up, you'll never work in this town again, guys. Like, it wasn't a real suit. So they got shut down. They stopped. He became a crooner. He basically owned his own nightclubs. He was a friend of what's his name? Sinatra. He was. There's a story on the making of that's going to be on the disc where he was at the house when Mia and him were going to break up, and Mia came over and he was there, and there's some violence, and there's some crazy stories.
Wow.
That his son tells a lot of the stories. But anyway, he's an interesting guy, and he put all his money at a certain point in his later years. I think he looks like he's about 60 maybe, or 55. Yeah. In his later years, he saw Godfather. I don't know. I'm probably butchering.
That's the story, but he's
a Sicilian. He saw Godfather, and he really was offended by its portrait of gangsters and Italians, and didn't like it. And so he said, I'm going to make my own. And because he had seen a lot of that world. I mean, basically, this is the lost gene connection to Scorsese movies. Like, I watch Casino and all these movies and go, this guy would have been amazing in those movies. Like, as just that side character who walks in. I mean, he's lived the life.
Yeah.
And I think what I like about his movies, so he basically took his money, sold everything. He made the film Massacre Mafia style, which had a lot of
Executioner.
Had a bunch of like Father, Like Son.
Yep.
And it's a great movie. It's a really original, fun, offbeat.
I don't know if I'd say great.
I didn't mean to chuckle there, but
it's thoroughly entertaining.
I'd say great.
It's a competent movie. It's very interesting.
No,
I will say.
The opening sequence is like one of the great openings of a movie, I think. So
it's pretty amazing.
Anyway, but it's a straightforward, even though it's got really strange textures because of him. It's it's offbeat. It's got lots of weird things about it. That's what's so original. But the difference between him and exploitation filmmakers, usually exploitation is to make the money. With him, I can tell he has something to say, and he's desperate to say it. He even puts genuine like quotes and of what he's probably been telling his friends for years, right? Yeah. But I also think, and we were talking about it a lot after the show, what makes these films special. I was talking to Brian Quinn outside the theater, and I was like, it's that he puts the emotion in it.
Yeah.
He is so, all his emotion of himself is into that character, and then is so believable when you're watching these gangster movies. He's blowing people away, and he's like totally racist and all this stuff. But by the end of it, you're like, this is like a really honest thing I'm watching.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not so bad. It's good and all that stuff. This is just great if you like this kind of thing. You'll have a great time. It will definitely be, I know Bob Murawski, who's releasing it, is a little worried.
Well, Gone with the Pope, now that the punchline of that is that Gone with the Pope is his incomplete second feature.
So
it was found in a garage, right?
Well, basically, no, it wasn't found. Basically, his son. I mean, it sounds kind of like that, but he basically. Murawski and Sage Stallone for Grindhouse Releasing were looking to get the rights from Massacre Mafia Style, a film that most people hadn't heard of. You know, it's pretty under the radar. They went to his son. Duke had died in 1980. I think it was cancer or whatever. Anyway, they go to his house, and his son's like, I don't know where Massacre Mafia Style is, but my dad does have this unfinished films, all these cans, and they're like, what? And it's from then to now, where it's about to be released. It's been over 20 years, and Bob Murawski, who's the editor for Sam Raimi and
all his stuff,
does a lot of great stuff. Has gone back and been working on it for all this time. And a few years ago, they released it and started
2009, I think, is when they finished it.
I only saw it last year for the first time, but it's so basically from that they said the guy was like, do whatever you want, like here it is. There was a rough cut. I actually asked Bob because I didn't know. I asked him last night, was there any kind of cut? And he's like, no, there's a rough cut, but there's a lot missing. And he said some of the stuff, like there's a scene where they're going up a snow, was a whole reel. Like you could have been like 20 minutes of a movie. You're like, that's not needing to be.
Right.
Anyways, just and you watch this movie. For me, Gone with the Pope is an actual masterpiece of cinema. Like I honestly feel that with all my heart. No, I do. I feel that with all my heart. Like,
Gone with the Pope is better than Massacre.
Gone with the Pope.
Yes, she has. She saw it last time, didn't she?
Or no, Gone with the Pope. I know. I've seen Massacre Mafia.
You've seen Mafia, yeah. Because I was with your husband watching the other one. No, it's a masterpiece. I stand by that completely because it's so emotive. It's so personal. And it's all about male connections of friendship. You know, people have been in the prison, kissing each other goodbye, and then the kills are really great. Like the actual gangster, and a lot of that is Murawski's editing, and
you could tell with that movie that we saw last night that was like a modern director's eye, really.
Right.
Punctuating those scenes.
Well, because you saw the two films back to back.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is, so I remember the first time these two played was when I moved into town back in like 2009 when they first finished it, and the deal was that I believe Murawski said he would never release them. You just had to see them on the big screen.
No, and I think he has a point. I think he's doing it because people really want them, but I think he's got a point because not in front of an audience is going to be a different.
Yeah, exactly. And
I
appreciated
some of the stuff that comes off him is humorous.
Yeah.
And wins you over after a while. Like it isolates you for a few beats, and then it somehow. I mean, that's not him. And I think what he's doing is, I don't know if it's Duke Mitchell, the real person. I get the feeling it's him saying that's what these guys are like.
Right.
This world of all these Italian guys who hang out with each other at these clubs and have money and power.
Right.
Talk like this,
Yeah. So these are finally coming out on Blu-ray.
But these are violent and they're bloody movies and they're
cult movies. Yeah,
cult movies for sure. And we're still fingers crossed trying to get Bob on the show to talk about that.
That would be great.
But I love it. It was like a thrill seeing them again to me,
No, it was an experience, all right.
You giggled. I loved you giggling.
I'm sure Rob loved it.
I did. I had a great time.
You would. I wish you could have made it last time. But I think they are definitely audience films,
Mm-hmm. What else did you see?
I started watching that show Luther.
Okay, not horror, but okay.
Yeah, kind of is.
Is it?
Yeah, third episode. Well, I mean, it's like as horror as The Fall or whatever.
Okay,
he's a really good character. I see why people want him as Bond now. I didn't really get it. Idris Elba. I mean, I like Idris Elba, but it wasn't until this role I'm like, oh.
Okay, I haven't heard of the show. Fill me in.
Idris Elba is a really hot under the collar cop in England. It's a BBC, so each small, and he basically is, starts the first thing he's chasing down is a killer, and he lets him fall. Probably to his death because he's like a hothead because the guy's just killed a woman, and ever since then he's kind of dealing with the end of his marriage and stuff. But by episode 3 there's like this total Aleister Crowley Satanist serial killer character.
What?
Really good. The first two I'm like, they're pretty good because I've heard great things about it. It's on 3 seasons. I was probably lukewarm on the first 2 episodes, like good, I'll keep watching. Third I was like, oh cool, I'm in this now, and that's where I am right now. And it was dark. I mean, it was really twisted, this weird
that's my next show.
Serial killer. So that was fun.
Watch it.
I've been finishing up this Hollywood Underground Film Festival. The tickets went on sale today, so if people want to go to that, there's lots of cult stuff and weird stuff in there. And we're also premiering a new film called Betamax, which is a horror and experimental anthology by people like Damon Packard and Jim Coons and a lot of weirdos making really weird things. From what
I heard so much about Damon Packard's filming of his segment where like everyone else showed up with like a crew and lights and gaffers and everything.
His looks better than most of
them. Really,
and
everyone who was on his set was like, yeah, he just showed up. Like it was just him with the camera, no audio, just walking around.
Betamax, I've seen his short, which is John Carpenter's Corpse. And the first 2 minutes of it was the funniest thing I've seen all year. I mean, seriously, if you're a horror nerd, it's hilarious. I mean, they're at Tom Savini's training school for effects, and the guy comes in who's like wearing a tracksuit, looks nothing like Tom Savini, and he doesn't like practical effects anymore, and it's all about CG, and it's like insane. I think it could get him arrested.
Okay,
I
sold. I want to see that.
You better hope Carpenter's health improves, because otherwise this movie's going to get banned, because it's just too weird. But anyway, that looks interesting. So we're doing that, and this is in a very small theater, so it's only like 85 seats. So we're expecting all.
I'm excited to go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. And then I watched. So here was the fun thing. I'll be quick with this stuff. I didn't get the El Rey network. I didn't even really know what it was. I knew Rodriguez.
Oh no!
It just popped up on my cable, and I was like, "Oh, interesting."
They have good
First thing that
shows.
came up, freaking New York Ripper. I'm like, "Boom!"
Oh, okay,
on it.
good.
And it's totally trashy, and like it's definitely full cheese, like most like just grisly, ugly movie. But I love it because of that, because it's that New York that doesn't exist. You know?
Great soundtrack.
Exactly. Yeah, it really is.
Unbelievable ending.
I thought you had to pay extra for El Rey.
I have no idea. It just popped up. Maybe it's one of those things where they're going to
trial.
They're teasing you.
But I will say, you nailed it on the head. What you said a second ago. What blew me away is I saw that their director's chair show was on, and I hit the record on the Carpenter one, recorded the Tarantino one. I haven't seen the Guillermo one.
Yeah.
The Tarantino one is straight up the most inspiring thing I've seen all year.
Oh,
it's
wow.
2 hours with Rodriguez interviewing on 2 different episodes.
Yeah.
It's like inside the actor studio times 100, because they've been friends since before it all started. Yeah. And so him and Tarantino, so I feel like people like Carpenter and Tarantino aren't good interviews when it's people like us who aren't really their contemporaries. It's somebody who's interviewing who's literally your friend. And Rodriguez is like, I have no idea how you're this good. Like Rodriguez really says to him, like, there's times where you're making stuff, it blows my mind. You start writing something, and you read it to me, and I'm just like, I wish I could be half as good as you. And it's interesting to hear that. But the conversation, it's like one of my favorite interviews I've ever seen now. Like I was like bouncing off the walls after going, fuck, gotta make movies. Just because it's infectious the way he talks about being kind of a nobody. He's just, I'm a video store guy, and I was trying to write, and one time somebody said, you write pretty well. These scenes are pretty good, and that made me think maybe I should write. That was it. There was no school, nothing. It's just, and so it's, I don't know, it's very inspiring. And then the Carpenter was really
I've seen
solid.
that one, because I think it popped up on YouTube.
I think it did briefly, yeah, and it's good, and
yeah.
it's better than most. I mean, still Carpenter being, he's always a little tough, but you can tell he respects Rodriguez.
Right.
Like he says, "Oh, you're a great musician too," and that's totally different with Carpenter, because usually it's just talking down at people, and so it was actually really solid. And
I do like that bit where I think the Planet Terror thing comes up, because there's always that rumor that he wanted Carpenter score, and he's like, "You didn't call me, man. Would have done it."
He said, I think he said no. He said he was shooting a film. He was shooting the Ward, I guess, and that he couldn't do it, but he wanted to do it.
Yeah, he's like, I would have done it if you called me back. Or
and the last thing I'll say is, so anyway, the El Rey thing, actually, I looked through their programming. They have a lot of bullshit on late at night where it's not even a movie, but all the movies they're playing are amazing. It's all all Grindhouse stuff. Right. And so it was like, like right now, Death Dream's playing. I'm recording that for next week. A lot of good stuff. So anyway,
is it cut, or are they full?
It's full because it's cable. I mean, Tarantino was saying this is like my dream network if I was doing it. And the last thing I'll say is the Carpenter album. I finally started listening to it. It's just fucking amazing. Yeah, it's like honestly, it's better than most stuff that's in his movies. Like it just feels like a whole different. You're seeing a whole different world while you're listening to it, and
it's great. I can't stop listening to it.
It's really good, and I need to buy it. I was listening to them on YouTube to get in the mood for, because we're doing the
LA Gothic Radio, the day that this airs
on Friday. Yeah, the day this airs. So if you're in LA, come to Jump Gut, and this is a movie that Carpenter almost made with Sean Keller and Jim Agnew.
Jim Agnew, yeah.
We'll be performing the script, performing it with live actors and some good actors too. And we'll see, and we'll play the score beforehand. Yeah, I doubt John will not come. John definitely is not coming now.
You asked him to come and show up and play synth.
Yeah, I said, he can play background. So it's some periphery horror stuff. But
well, this week I finally saw The Guest, which had been a long time coming. Mm-hmm. I think it was built up a little bit much, because you guys are like, greatest film of the year.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Of the year.
Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't say greatest.
It was a lot of fun. By the end, I was like, there's some plot holes, but it was so much fun. You don't really care.
That's what I love about it. That's what I love about it. And actually, that's one of my revisits this week. I did rewatch it, and I think it's even better on repeat viewing. Because the first time you're trying to get a vibe.
I was like, what's up with the plastic surgery? I was trying to fill in the holes, and by the end, I'm like, there's just holes. They're just going to exist.
It's so much better the more once you know where the story is supposed to go. If you rewatch it, the opening scene has a totally different everything has a totally different meaning. It's amazing.
It took me a while to realize that it was a comedy, I have to say. Because, like, you guys had just told me it kicked ass, but, you know, I heard...
half thriller.
You know, no, if I'd started from the beginning thinking it's a comedy, I would have found a lot of his interactions with the family to be a lot more funny. Like, I didn't... Because, I mean, when people start dying, I was like, oh, my God, people are dying.
Yeah, but I think the first half is meant to be tense. I think it's a mixture. I think it is definitely...
It definitely has some
But again,
tension.
when you revisit it, it's funny.
It wasn't... I didn't laugh until he was with the gun dealer, so that I was like, oh, shit, that's fucking hilarious.
And the school scene where he talks about
school scene, that was
it's just
great.
like pure gold. It's just his charisma is just unparalleled last year. It's just like, wow, who's this guy? You know?
I won't call it a horror film, but it's definitely... Actually, you know what? I'll call it.
No, it gets there.
Oh, it's fringy. It gets pretty intense.
Halloween-y at the end. I mean,
no, definitely the third act.
as I said, if Stepfather is a horror film, this is
This
awesome.
is a horror film, definitely.
Terminator's also... I mean, it's also sci-fi.
And the best description I heard of it, which, you know, because I think it's best to not know anything going into this movie, but at this point, you've probably seen trailers.
Most people have seen it, probably.
But I watched an interview with Dan Stevens where he's like, I did it because the writer Simon was like, what if Captain America went wrong? That was his one-line pitch to it. And he's like, all right, cool.
That's
I'll
good.
do that.
That's cool.
Pitch,
That's a great pitch.
That's pretty much it.
And then I watched Transylvania Twist, which I have never seen before. And it was recommended to me by one of our other guests. It's Wynorski. And it was recommended to me by Dave Parker, who is like, oh my God, you have to see this. Because I've talked about how, Wynorski, he has a couple of films that I'm like, okay.
What's the other one in that era that you love?
Yeah, there's
I love Haunting of Morella from him.
Okay.
I think it's amazing.
Should we pop some tops?
No.
That's it, boys. Take them off. But Transylvania Twist, it's like Wynorski does PG-13, but it's not PG-13 because it's still just as Wynorski, where they're talking about sex and all the sexual innuendos and humor and cleavage everywhere. But no one gets buck naked. But what I like about it, it's this very 80s humor where it's very self-aware of the devices of filmmaking. So they're like talking about the scores as they're playing and playing with diegetic versus non-diegetic sound. So the humor is actually, I thought it was great, which is really shocking because I'd never say that about a Wynorski film. Past Chopping Mall and Morella. That's about it for me.
I think his humor is always intact. It's just the filmmaking's not intact anymore. You know what I mean?
This is surprisingly great filmmaking too, because it plays a lot with the filmmaking, with like the reveals and the comedic timing. It's
what year?
actually nicely done.
I don't. Period? Like, was it 90s?
I want to say like early 90s. Okay. I'll look it up after this. But and I have to say, like, it reminded me a lot of Attack the Killer Tomatoes Part 2. It was I love that movie so much. And I mean, it's cheesy and it's got its flaws, but I mean, the humor was in the same vein for me, so it kept me interested. And I also watched, and I can't wait to finish watching it, I watched the first 20 minutes of 1993's When a Stranger Calls Back. Also
the sequel?
Yeah. Oh my God, the first 20 minutes are fucking amazing. It's like I was on the edge of my seat, and I wasn't expecting it to be, because it's
Why did you only watch that much then? Was it because you had to go?
Yeah, I ran out of time. So I've got to watch the remainder of it. So
Carole King again. I think it's the same director too, right?
Yeah. And it's got Jill Schoen in it, who we had just talked about. And and it's, I mean, just the first 20 minutes were so gripping.
Wow.
It was, and I was shocked too. So.
Was you watching that on DVD or?
Yeah, I borrowed a DVD. So it was.
That one's hard to get. I don't think it's how to print the DVD of it.
It was great. So I'm anxious to see what the rest of it is. But first 20 minutes. Awesome.
Yeah. So. Well, that's the deal with the first one too. Is the first 20 minutes is great, and then there's an hour of what, and then it ends pretty good too.
But and I was planning to watch The Fourth Kind, which I talked about on last week's show.
I've heard a lot of people say why.
Oh my God, yeah, I kept reading the Facebook comments from last week where I'm like, okay, guys, I'm really into aliens.
Like, Bekah, don't do it.
Give me some good alien stuff. I think I'm going to watch The Fourth Kind, and everybody's like, don't do it. And so I didn't, and now I'm like, oh, crowd mentality.
Wow.
Maybe I should.
Our audience has swayed you.
I know, but now I'm like,
shocked Mia Jovovich wasn't enough for you to just blindly go into that. Has she not proven herself to you? Resident Evil after Resident Evil. Come on, she's a strong woman.
By the time it got to the Vegas Resident Evil, I was kind of done. But
alrighty.
Yeah, so in the meantime, if people can come up with other alien films that I need to be seeing, I was not into the ones that I've been seeing. Like Honeymoon was okay, but it wasn't completely my bag. And then I watched another one, which I can't even remember the name of, which was a group of people at a party and their doppelgangers show up.
Did you see the Whitley Strieber one yet?
No.
Okay.
Which one's that?
God, what is it? Christopher Walken, Whitley Strieber.
Communion.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fire in the
no.
Sky,
I need to rewatch Communion. That's one that I watched when I was a little kid.
Somebody on their page said it was crap. It didn't
I know, yeah.
As a young person, it was really effective.
I don't remember.
It creeped the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Fire
that
in
was
the
also
Sky.
Walken,
Fire in the Sky, I remember
Definitely creeped
No,
me
that was
out
a
when
good
I was a
movie.
kid.
I haven't seen The Arrival in a long
I haven't
time.
seen
either.
The
Dude, the
Arrival.
ending of Arrival was always one of my favorite endings.
Really? Okay.
I haven't seen it since it came out, but the last 10 minutes had a big twist.
Yeah, there's like a double feature of
Toohey,
1
I
and
think.
2 because I guess they made another one.
I never
Yeah.
saw them after that. Yeah,
I'm not looking for like aliens, like Predator or Aliens. I'm looking for like they come here and they take you type alien movies. So if anybody can think of any, please send them to me.
Almost Human.
All right, fair enough.
I have seen Almost Human.
There you go.
Alrighty, so that's it.
I believe
Movie
we
wise,
are
all right.
done.
Let's get our guest on because this is going to get exciting. He's got notes too. I love it. So this is an old friend of mine. Well, let's say all of ours. A competitive horror trivia, attendee from McCready's Beard, and a convention agent, Mr. Sean Clark. Hello.
How you doing?
Yeah,
Welcome,
basketball
man.
fan like Carpenter.
Big basketball
Me
fan.
too.
Huge
The
basketball
only,
fan.
I always think horror fans and basketball fans are the best kind.
the only actual riveting conversation I've ever had with John has been about basketball.
Me too. It's exactly.
Video
It's like
games
the
for
only
me.
thing he perks up for.
I bumped into
I've
him.
talked about video games with
Okay.
him. He kind of gets a little
Some-
bit
He
interested.
gets
then.
almost excited for
little,
that.
little bit.
I remember one time I bumped into him during a set visit back in my journalism days, and he was standing outside of a studio. And I walked up to him and I started, "Hey, John, how you doing?" I was wearing a Sonics jacket. The Sonics were still around then. And he's like, Sonics doing good this year. I'm like, yeah. And we started talking basketball. And I said, oh, by the way, I'm one of the guys that did that Halloween 25 Years of Terror documentary. Immediately just like dropped head, tone changed.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, good for you. I was like, okay.
Wow.
You can't talk to him about horror. That's his
Sorry.
kind of thing.
That's really
Yeah.
funny.
Wow.
Yeah. I was telling them because he, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not. I met him recently on something that a friend was working on. And I distinctly said, do not say that I have anything to do with horror or that I occasionally contribute to Fangoria. And what does my friend do? He's like, oh, that's my buddy Rob. He writes for Fango. And he was just like, Fangoria. Pfft. And like walks away. And because it's him, and I've met him 100 times and I've never had a pleasant experience. I still love him because it's Sean.
You should have got it. Wait, you mean the magazine? You're on the front.
Yeah, you're on the
Front
cover.
and still,
Dude, come on. You're
no
on the
respect,
cover.
no respect
Jeez.
whatsoever for that.
Do not take that in a bad way.
No,
He's
I
just-
don't. I find it funny actually.
You say the H word and he just turns.
I always talk to Sandy. She's wonderful.
Yeah. No, that's true. So, one of the main reasons that, first of all, Sean is actually a listener and supporter of our show and always tells me how much he enjoys it, which we appreciate.
I do
didn't know
listen
that.
to the show. In fact, I came up with a drinking game
cool.
based on your show.
Here it comes.
Doesn't surprise me.
You're going to pick on all of us.
Yeah,
though. This is where it
I'm going
comes.
to pick on it.
All right.
Well, I'll be honest with you. You're the hardest one to pick on.
Oh,
so,
good.
so this is if people that listen to the show, you can't do it tonight because it doesn't count because I'm bringing it up right now.
All right. And I got a beer. So
Yeah.
Right.
Now we're going to be really self-aware.
Okay, yeah, I know. Anytime Bekah says the word Fango or Fangoria, you got to take a shot.
All right. That's pretty excessive.
That's
Okay,
pretty.
sure.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. Anytime Elric says what the possession.
I don't talk
Possession.
about what are you talking? This is
Or anytime that you don't finish a word and change the sentence completely in mid thought, take a shot.
That's a good one.
That shows a sharp mind. I'm not like George Bush. Going
It
down.
shows a heavy drinker is what it shows.
Anytime Rob says AJ Bowen, you got to take a shot.
Oh,
I'll give you
totally.
that. Yeah,
There you go.
Fair enough.
So I mean,
think that's pretty
and if
good.
you want to play this episode, anytime I say Norman Reedus.
Okay.
All right. There we go. That's good.
Norman's the key word for today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be mine.
I like it. Okay.
Well, so Sean listens to the show. He's a friend of ours, a supporter as well. But his history in horror, obviously we brought him on for conventions because he's a convention agent. He has his own company called Convention All-Stars that he manages several clients, including Norman Reedus, who we just mentioned.
I feel like
I
we
guess
should
he's-
scream like it's special word of the day.
Yeah, like Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
I want to congratulate you, by the way. He is alive after the first episode of the new season. That's all I'm saying. He's still alive. He is still alive.
He is still alive.
In fact, he actually didn't even appear in the episode. So that's probably why.
Right at the end. He's right.
That's right.
He ain't going anywhere.
I know.
From what I can tell.
He shouldn't. Yeah.
And also, and I mean, somebody. I mean, you're. I think you're the only person that got Jamie Lee Curtis out to do a show.
Her one and only.
Her one and only. Which is
Although
amazing.
people keep contacting me, like I'm going to be able to get her to do it again.
Yeah.
Do they offer, now that they know it's so hard, do they offer like crazy money to try to make that happen? And she's like, it doesn't matter what it is now.
I mean, I actually currently have an offer. I haven't taken her yet. And I can't imagine she's going to say yes after how she was so like, this is it. She, even in the documentary thing that,
I watched it,
her sister and brother-in-law shot, she was just so adamant about this is it, one and only time, So,
but see, the key to her heart is so clearly like charity,
Yeah.
And so I could see it. It must be really hard for these people, for charities who go, there's a good offer on the table. It's like all you have to do is show up, and all that money goes to someone. I can see how you can get that broken down to do it again.
And that's the thing fans ask me all the time. I mean, because here's the thing: for years it was all, why won't she do one? Why is she turning her back on horror? Then she does one. It's like, well, why won't she do another one? Why is she turning her back on horror? And it's like, she's Jamie Lee Curtis. She can raise money 1,000 different ways. Right. It doesn't have to be a horror convention. She can do a celebrity charity dinner. She can raise money a bunch of ways.
Which she has done. I've been to one of her horror celebrity, I don't think it was a dinner, but it was like an event here in town. It was at the place downtown. So, I mean, she does.
It was like a Scare LA sort of thing or something.
That was the Malik's thing.
They covered the floor in hay. That's all I remember is I was sneezing the entire night.
Malik threw that. She didn't throw that. They gave her an award that night. It was
Terrence Malick, if you're listening.
But God, why am I forgetting?
Malik God.
Scares That Care?
No, it's not Scares That Care.
Okay.
It's called Scare. Why am I? I can't. He's going to kill me.
I thought it was Scares for Care or maybe Scare. But
Scares That Care.
It was a charity. It was a horror charity that she was a part of.
I do want to ask this because the one thing about that documentary is it did look like she had a ball. It looked like that interaction was really powerful for her.
My favorite moment in the documentary's on the Halloween 30th anniversary Blu-ray and the box set. But my favorite moment of that whole documentary is, I guess it's the night before the signing where there's like a little party in her room and you see some of the Michael Myers guys and stuff. Mm-hmm. But the second that Tom Atkins walks through the door and like her reaction to him is like my favorite moment of that whole time.
Oh man.
She gets so excited. She's like, oh. And that's how we all feel when Tom Atkins walks in the room.
Dude, you have no idea the stuff that you guys didn't get to see because that was. By the way, it's called S-Care.
S-Care.
That's Malik's charity. I was basically, it was my idea to have a suite set up where all the other guests could come have some time with her before the show started. Because I said, man, if we try to just go out and do this, they're going to be coming up all day going, oh my God, Jamie, hello. All these former cast members. Yeah. Because the whole thing was, one of her requirements was all the guests had to be people from horror movies that she had appeared with. So no guests were really cool. I mean, there was Terror Train people, Prom Night people, Halloween. It was Fog. So anyway, we're in this room and people are knocking on the door and they're showing up and she would look at the person and they'd be like, oh my God. And she would lean over and whisper in my ear, who is that? and she did that once with Lance Guest from Halloween 2. Oh, wow. And I go, it's Lance Guest, Jimmy, Halloween 2. And she goes, Lance, how's it going? But the best one, there's a knock at the door. I wish this was on the doc. I don't know if the footage exists, but knock at the door. She goes, I got it. She opens the door. It's Charles Cyphers. Now, have you seen Charles lately? He looks like Colonel Sanders.
Totally. Nothing.
He's bald and he's got like a Colonel Sanders thing going on. He's all, Jamie. And she goes, and you are? And he goes, it's Chuck Cyphers. And she goes, Jesus fucking Christ, what happened to you? Give me a hug. It was hilarious.
Yeah, it must be so weird because you do a lot of it. We as fans like.
Well, think about it. Bumping into somebody that you worked with 10 years ago, whatever, at some job.
Totally.
Like, oh shit!
The fans have a better handle of what you look like now than what people do in these movies. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. So we're jumping around a little bit, but let's go back a little bit because the thing that Sean's primarily known for, I think, is among the horror community, is his show and series Horror's Hallowed Grounds.
Oh my God! You're the first person that's ever said it correctly on any podcast.
They
always go horror hallowed ground.
I practice.
Or horror hallowed grounds. I mean, they fuck it up every time.
Horrors
hallowed grounds.
Believe me, in retrospect, I should have named it something simpler.
It's a tongue
twister.
Spooky places.
Yeah.
Too many H's.
Scary places.
So yeah, if you're unfamiliar, it's essentially, and I mean, this is cool. This is the sort of thing that fans are interested in.
Yeah.
They like to see what the locations, the places from these films look like. So Sean does a lot of these video segments for locations from like Halloween and the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Nightmare on Elm Street and all this stuff. And then it continued as a magazine segment in Horror Hound,
which I have been really lagging on. I've missed the last 3 issues because I've just been too busy.
Right.
But I just brought in a fan who is way into this stuff. Came up to me at a convention and I was really impressed. He showed me what he's been doing. I'm like, dude, killer, you're finding some awesome stuff I've never found. That's great. Mm-hmm. And he goes, well, if you'd ever want to use any or, have me write an article, I noticed you've missed a few issues, and
they're calling you on it.
Yeah. So I actually hit him up recently because Nathan from Horror Hound's like, dude, 3rd issue in a row. Really? You can't just get one done. I'm like, I'm so busy. I've just been traveling nonstop. So I talked to him, and this guy's going to help me, pick up the slack. And he sent me his list of ones that I haven't done, and it's super impressive.
Wow!
Like fans are going to be stoked.
And I mean, I know we talked.
His name's Rob Patterson, by the way. I want to give him a shout out.
And I know we talked a little bit about this when you and I did a commentary on icons for the Warriors for the fun of it, and I asked you a little bit about it. But this is a very time-consuming process, finding all the locations, physically going, taking the pictures. And the thing is, your attention to detail is so meticulous that you get almost like the exact camera angle of the shot. If I'm standing there, and I've been to like the Halloween locations in Pasadena a million times, I can never get the right shot of what it looks like. I'm just like, oh yeah, that looks like kind of what it is. How did this start? Why? Did you just go as a fan to find these locations initially?
Okay, I've told this story before. It's actually Anthony Ferrante, former Fango writer,
for Fango,
director of
Sharknado. It's kind of I've always told him he's indirectly responsible. I was reading an interview with Carpenter in Fango way back in the day, early 90s, something like that, mid 90s, and somewhere in the article, Carpenter was talking about the filming locations. And he said South Pasadena. Mm-hmm. Then later in the article, he mentioned a street name. He said Orange Grove. Now, nerds like me that know the locations, Orange Grove is in Hollywood off Sunset.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And South Pasadena is where the Myers house is and all that stuff. I just, back in the day, this is before the internet, used to have to use the Thomas Brothers guides, map books. Mm-hmm. And I went through that, found an Orange Grove in South Pasadena, drove there. You get off the Orange Grove exit, you make a left, the Myers house is right there. It was a total accident. Complete fluke. And me and my friend Darren was with me, and we're just like, oh, let's just see if we can find it. And the moment we saw the Myers house, it was like, oh, it was just like, it was so cool because it gives you this feeling of nostalgia, like going back to your old elementary school. Even though you've never been there, you feel like you've been there. And that feeling of, oh man, because I'm a super nostalgic person.
Me too, yeah.
And that feeling was like, I was hooked, and it just became a hobby. And how it started is I was writing for Creature Corner way back in the day with Ryan Rotten, Ryan Turek nowadays.
The pre-Dread Central.
Yeah, that's right.
And Johnny Butane.
Yeah.
And I was working with them, and then we went to Dread Central. Or no, excuse me, Horror Channel. We went to Horror Channel next. Right. And at that point, I think I'd actually pitched the idea as an online article to Johnny in Creature Corner, but he was not sold on it. And then when Horror Channel came along, Uncle Creepy, I told him about it. And he's, oh, that's great, blah, 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 do it. So I did it, immediately got a huge response from fans, and it started as an online article on Horror Channel, then went over to Dread Central, actually eventually then went to Bloody Disgusting at one point. I just kept hopping around.
This was all articles because you did a video version at some point.
Yeah, I'll get to that.
Chainsaw? Yeah, okay.
I'll get to that in a second.
Going in order.
Well, it was articles first, and then I think what happened was I want to say Horror Hound came next. Maybe the first video version did, but maybe it was the video version. I was doing the Halloween 25 Years of Terror convention. From that, we made the 25 Years of Terror documentary.
Right.
And I was in Malik's office one day, And Malik was like, we need more bonus features for this to really pack the release. I said, well, I got this article I do online. I showed it to him, and I told him my idea for a show version. And he goes, that sounds great. Do it. You got 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks? Like to do a finished thing? And he's like, yeah. So we rushed out and banged it out. Me, Andrew Cash, some of the other Horror Channel guys, John Condit and guy Todd. And we banged it out super fast. And fortunately, PJ Souls was super cool and went with me and did it. And we did that. And that got a big fan response. And I bumped into Nathan Hanneman at San Diego Comic-Con. Didn't know who he was. He recognized me probably from the video and said, hey, I love that article you do. Would you be interested in doing it in a magazine every issue? And he gave me a copy. And I think he gave me like issue number 3. And I owned issue number 1 somehow.
Right.
I think...
We're nerds. We see it. We're like, oh, a new horror thing. I got it. Number 1.
Well, you know, it's funny. People give me shit all the time at conventions, and I usually look at it and go, okay, throw it away. You know what I mean? But I remember keeping this magazine going, this is a cool magazine. Yeah. And when he told me Horror Hound, I go, dude, yeah, that's a good magazine. I go, yeah, I'll do it. So that's how it started.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Cool. And I mean, you know, and I understand what you mean in terms of visiting these locations and stuff, because I may have said this on the show before, but once... probably every 2 or 3 months, me and AJ Bowen, grab your drink, we go to South Pasadena and we go to the Myers house. There's a coffee shop up the block. We grab coffee. We pass by the Myers house. We go through some of the Halloween 2 locations.
Spider Baby house is right there too.
Spider Baby, same street as
did not know that.
Teen Wolf shot right there in front of the hardware store.
The
and
spiral staircase from Possession.
He's not there. A lot of drinks in that last 2 minutes.
So a question that I know I've been asked before is, when you moved to LA, and I know that you're from LA originally, but like when you guys first moved here, what were like your destinations of, I have to see this place? Because everybody has
the Halloween
one.
Locations are
the
big.
Halloween
and you know
ones?
what? And this also ties in because I thought the coolest, before I lived here, I came out for the 25th anniversary Halloween convention, which was, what year was it?
2003.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe it's been that long. But I came out here, and the coolest thing, which I believe you orchestrated, was
bus tour. Yeah.
If you had the VIP package, a couple hours before the convention started, they would bus you out. There was like, I don't know, 5 buses or whatever.
The same thing last year, right?
We've done it every year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Every
the first year was the bus tour was a little more organized by Anthony Massey that time. Obviously, I told him where everything was, but like,
and were there drama students too? I remember that the high school drama students were like, so when you pull up
from South Pasadena High School, which is Haddonfield High School,
you'd walk out, the bus would stop where the bush is, and acting students from the school would reenact. You'd see 2 girls dressed like PJ Souls and Jamie Lee, and then Michael come out from behind the bush, and it was really neat. I thought that was like,
don't forget, while in Pasadena, you can also see the Society House, which is just as important to nerds like me. So
is it really?
Was that your destination?
It's the outside where the Rose Bowl is, across from there. It's it's like the mayor. It's like some really important house, but they just made it look like the guy's house.
I always assumed that was actually in Beverly Hills, because they showed Beverly Hills High School in it.
Yeah, they probably shoot some, but a lot of it's Pasadena.
And just walking distance from the bush, Pee Wee's house from Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Oh, that's amazing! I've never been there.
Mine were like, I went to Darby Crash's house, the lead singer of the Germs, which is in Melrose. Or it was the house that he died in. And I went to Maya Daren's house. Elric will know who that is. It's an art film director. But I went there. It is horror. It's what influenced David Lynch.
Okay. And Blade Runner's locations downtown. Like the $1 Million Theater and that old office building that's in every movie. It's in LA.
Yeah, and it's in Wolf with Nicholson.
Yeah, there's something about Blade Runner that to me is the ultimate LA thing, because it's not really LA, but it's just so LA.
Mine's always Miracle Mile, which still when I drive down there, I like get visions of the movie.
Oh yeah, that restaurant that's always closed.
Johnny's.
I love Miracle Mile. That's such a good
Big Lebowski. That was the toe scene was in that restaurant.
Oh, yeah. Was it? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
well, to me, South Pass.
Get your toe.
Because South Pass was used in so many 80s movies that I grew up on, including Halloween is 70s, obviously, but then 80s like Teen Wolf and Back to the Future. It's just got that middle America suburban feel to it, which is why I think we like to walk around South Pass every couple months, just because it reminds us of those movies that we loved growing up.
But mine was when, and I think I actually talked about it on the show because it just happened this past year. I was watching one of the Freddy movies. I don't even remember which one. And they drove past the house in Burbank I was living in at the time.
Oh, the weird house?
Yeah. And it wasn't even painted because I lived in this multicolored house and it wasn't even painted at the time. But it was just one of these moments where I just went, hey, that was my house. Because I was sitting in the house watching the movie. It was very surreal.
There's something weirder about, like, if these movies were set in LA, it'd be different. But because things like Nightmare and especially Halloween's the one that, like, for me, the big moment of like, was watching it in LA and realizing, PJ Souls, they're like LA girls. Yeah. Like, totally. That's not what they're talking about in Illinois at the time. And that was like a real moment of clarity. Like, this is an LA people. But I think that's really unique. Like, because LA is playing not itself, it's playing other places. And I find that.
Yeah, but we buy it all.
No, we do. When we watch movies.
And then there's
magic.
like Dupar's from Valley Girl, which I was totally psyched the first time I ate at because I was like, oh my God, this is like the cool diner that they go to in the Valley.
Totes.
Bekah,
totes.
It's radical.
Well, before we delve into the convention side of things, we've only sort of touched upon our experiences. I think, and I want to hear from Sean as well. Like I said at the top of the show, it's probably one of the most influential things that happens to a horror fan that solidifies your fandom. So what for you guys, what were your first convention experiences? Like, what was the first one you went to and what do you remember about it? What stands out about it? Well, let's start with Sean.
It was either 88 or 89 Fango Weekend of Horrors, downtown LAX Hyatt.
Wow.
I remember, or no, Hilton, I'm sorry. And I remember, it's so funny, I went with my friend Pat Schulastra, who I haven't spoken to in probably a year and a half, and happened to call me today, very coincidentally. But yeah, we started working at a Spencer's together, and that's where I met him.
So much neon.
In the 80s, there still was a lot of neon. I remember I stole one of those neon telephones from there. Anyway, just like the one Axl Rose smashes in the November Rain video or whatever it is. But anyway, we were both horror nerds, and he said, "Oh yeah, man, the Fango convention." I'm just like, "What is that? What is it?" I had every issue, probably seen the ads, but didn't really know what they were.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, and I remember the Tall Man was going to be there and Pinhead, Doug Bradley. And I'm like, holy fuck, I can meet the Tall Man and fucking Pinhead.
Yeah.
I am in. And we went and I was hooked, man. I mean, I was like a kid in a candy store, and, all the shit that I'm into, you can buy there. It became... It's something super sacred like Christmas that has now totally been ruined for me. I remember for probably at least until the mid to late 90s, I had a group of friends, like 5 or 6 friends, who every year we went to the Fangoria convention, and it was Christmas to us. And it was that was really kind of there was like, I think Fango did like a New York show too. Mm-hmm. Yep. So we'd always go, fuck, they got so-and-so at the, I remember one time
we did Secaucus. Well, I mean, at that time we were still doing New York.
New York
at that time we were still doing Mid-City.
But I remember Fulci was at one of those New York City ones, and we were like, God damn it, Fulci,
I've seen that. That's filmed. That's
filmed. Yeah, because I think he passed away right after.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe it's on Cat in the Brain. The Cat in the Brain extras.
They used to, Creation used to film those and release them. Remember that Weekend of Horrors video?
I still have a couple of them. I even have the Japanese one because we released a Weekend of Horrors video in Japan, but instead of having like a convention thing on the cover, it's got like this weird like satanic pentagram, and then it says Fango's Weekend of Horrors up at the top.
I need to find that.
I have it on VHS tape. It's kind of kick ass.
I remember we used to watch that video and just laugh our asses off. There's some like quotable lines in there from fans. I remember this one guy has this really shitty Freddy glove he made himself, and he's going, Freddy Krueger, man, right here, like that. and
they weren't good. They were shot on VHS videos but I remember like every time I went to a FangoCon, they had the video of last year's, and you're like, ooh, there's the new video. So I kind of forgot about that.
So that's how I got hooked. And I remember, I think it was 93 was when we made our first trek out to a convention, and that was the Zombie Jamboree in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Monroeville. And we went to the Dawn of the Dead Mall and the whole thing, and we were just flipping out. And that was the ultimate trip for us,
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Bekah, do you remember your first convention?
Oh, definitely. Actually, my very first convention that I ever went to wasn't even a horror con. It was a Rocky Horror Picture Show convention.
Oh, God.
I know, crazy,
There's your
right?
other shot right there. Anytime she mentions Rocky Horror.
Yeah, hey, it doesn't come up
drink
that
to that.
much. But no, because I was I was part of the performing cast when I was in college, and we were doing. I was on a musical tour.
Riff-raff?
Yeah. The bald patch. The bald patch. And we were actually doing summer stock theater where we were like touring up and down the East Coast with the show. And this was the actual musical version. And so we did a stopover at a Rocky Horror Picture Show convention. And I was maybe a sophomore in college at this time. And it was amazing because it was suddenly like-minded people all performing for each other and doing this thing. But it was like a horror convention because like Tom Savini was there. So I met Tom Savini there. And along with all the Rocky Horror cast, there were all these other kind of like standard horror people, like Tony Todd was there. So though it was a Rocky Horror convention, it was kind of, all of your convention folks were there as well. And
Proof that Tony Todd will come to any convention.
and Tom Savini.
That's funny.
So I met all of these fun people there. And then that next summer, like I did that during the school year. And then that next summer after my sophomore year of college, my mom is like a diehard sci-fi buff. And we drove to a place in Pennsylvania that was doing, it was a really small science fiction convention. And I can't even say that there were like notable people there. They had a couple of like the Star Trek people there. At the time, like Voyager was huge. So I remember there was a bunch of Voyager people there,
Picardo
which I
was there. Robert Picardo was there.
I was so excited just because like even just that was like my first big moment of seeing celebrities that I had seen on television every week because I was such a huge Star Trek nerd. To see them like sitting at a table signing was just crazy for me. And so that was kind of like my first like big fan convention. My first horror convention, I'll call it, wasn't even horror. New York Comic Con was like one of my first ones. And it was the very first weekend I was working for Fango was New York Horror Comic Con long ago, like 15 years ago.
Yeah. You're going to get me fucked up, Bekah. On
I know. Well, we're talking about Fang Con. So Fango's going to go up.
She said Fang.
Fang. And
Fang.
We know where you're going with
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
but
As if we need an excuse to
my
make another sip.
employer at the time had done what they used to do at the old Fango conventions, and just chug the damn thing, Elric.
It's gonna be wasted
They had
in no
given
time.
me a camera guy and a microphone and said, "Go around and interview horror fans."
Oh, what was your name that you told us earlier?
Mistress Bekah.
Mistress Bekah.
Because they wanted me to
Honestly,
have
you
a
should
monitor.
change it. You're vanilla fuckle now.
We gotta find that picture.
I sent them a picture of what my old press photo as Mistress Bekah used to be,
God.
which was ridiculous. I had huge
Dynasty.
hair.
Total dominatrix thing. I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
I was wearing leather and had
Mistress
like
Bekah.
big hair, big eyelashes.
50
Anyway,
Shades of
but
Bekah. I can see it. Mistress Bekah.
they sent me around to interview horror fans, and the first guy that I walk up to, he looks normal enough, and he's dressed up as Gene Simmons. So I was like, cool, let's interview him on, why he's dressed as Gene Simmons. And as soon as we start the interview, it is clear that he is kind of the craziest motherfucker ever in the world. And so that was like also my first interview.
On drugs?
I don't even know. He was just like gone. Like it was insane. So
Happens at conventions.
yeah, that
Was he
my-
dressed as Gene Simmons from Kiss or Gene Simmons from Runaway?
That would have been much cooler if he had the little
Reality,
electronic bugs.
Yeah.
No, he was Gene Simmons from Kiss.
Never too young to die.
Chuck Norris terrorist movie. Gene Simmons plays a terrorist in one of those Chuck Norris like
God.
action movies.
I forgot. I know what you're talking about.
That was the one.
Yeah,
Oh, it
well,
is?
yeah, that's- yeah,
Okay,
right.
so
Little
that-
electronic
it's amazing.
buggies.
Yeah, he plays like an Arabic.
Yeah.
Actually go to Gene Simmons' house. He has the actual metal insects and the gun still in his
Nice.
office.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to blow your minds because every year growing up in New Zealand, there's a little convention, only one guest, Neil Palooza, Sam Neill, every year. He hosts it himself. We all get there. They're all four of us from New Zealand. We gather around,
Right.
and Sam comes, and
And
it's the whole island together, all four people,
Right.
And 3 million sheep. We all gather together. We give a little sacrifice to Sir Sam.
All
Anyway.
right. Get serious, though. So you had film festivals, though. You didn't have a convention.
We have film festivals, but no, the thing look, the thing that I think you're all hitting on that's special about conventions, it doesn't actually matter when you discover it, because my first interaction with a person who I kind of deified, who I hadn't thought about meeting in the flesh, was, I think I've talked about him. I was working in Irvine. I went to Irvine for that 1 year from New Zealand in the movie theater, and Robert Englund comes up to the movie theater. He goes, I only go to art house films, blah, blah. He sat down for an hour and had lunch with me on my break. And I let him in free to this art house movie. I think it's George Washington, David Gordon Green's first film. And he goes, I only go to art house films, blah, blah, blah. And I was working at Edwards across the street. And he sat there for an hour talking to me about movies. And it was really special. Like, you can't beat that shit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that doesn't, and that's similar to what that thing is. But it wasn't until really recently, like, I think it's like 5 years ago, probably, the Chicago flashback. It was the one with all the Italian directors. It was Lamberto Bava. Ruggero Deodato. George Romero was there. But for me, so I went, it was just before I moved out here, and, it kind of blew my mind, because these were people I didn't really think about ever meeting. Didn't know what I'd say to them if I met them, but I thought about their movies all the time. So especially like Ruggero Deodato, you're like, the guy who made this movie, you could have gone to prison. It just was really weird. But meeting them in that context was one thing, but it was walking past Herschel Gordon Lewis, who was alone. I still have my framed picture of his face looking like a businessman. And I sat down next to him. I didn't really understand conventions. Like, I didn't know what you're meant to do. So I was just like, oh my God, you actually Herschel Gordon Lewis.
I'm going to sit next to you and just talk.
I just sat there for like an hour and we talked about stuff. No one was going near him. I mean, He was in this weird corner. George Romero was there somewhere. And it was pretty cramped across from an airport, and it blew my mind. I'm like, I couldn't even now I look back and go, that's pretty weird that I'm sitting there talking to this guy who made these really strange movies, and he's talking mostly about business. It's mostly about, well, it's very interesting. You choose a topic. It doesn't matter what it is. He's kind of like Cormanish,
Yeah.
But it was really cool. And, I tried talking to Lamberto about, people, their Italian was a little...
It's tough because they need translators and stuff, yeah.
But it made a real impression on me. And at that point, I didn't know I was going to be anything to do with this side of horror, like the interviewing and talking to people. It wasn't until coming out here where it becomes a reality where everyone lives here.
Yeah.
But it was special. It was really neat to have that kind of access. And it wasn't like about the Screen Queens and Starlets till LA. And then it was Monsterpalooza was the next one.
Right.
Did that a couple years, but that's obviously a different kind of thing.
That's more like an industry show.
Yeah. No, but we'll get to that, because I feel like that there's Monsterpalooza touches something that a lot of other conventions don't, and we'll see if you guys agree with me or not.
Totally.
But my first experience, and this is going to be a perfect segue into a lot of stuff I want to talk to Sean about. Mine was, maybe I was somewhere between 12 and 14. It was definitely that early formative period where I was so into horror movies at that point. I'd go and rent anything I could get my hands on. And, my parents were clueless. They didn't know I was watching this shit. But my older brother was very supportive and liked it. And I'd obviously been reading Fangoria. And at that age, I was not I lived on Long Island. I wasn't really allowed to go into Manhattan, especially alone. It was just one of those things. But my older brother knew that this convention was coming up and I wanted to go. They did it every January back then, just once a year, every January. And it was neat because back then when they were doing New York City, you would take the Long Island Railroad into Penn Station, and it was literally across the street at the Pennsylvania Hotel.
Yeah, it's the same hotel that they used for the dog show.
Yeah, so back then, it was convenient. You took the train, and literally you just had to cross one street in Manhattan, and then you were there. And again, I'm a little kid, and I go in, and my favorite tradition back then was, if you got there early enough, the first presentation of the day was like a half-hour trailers. And I mean, back then, you were lucky if you saw a trailer anywhere other than the movie theater. I mean, there's nowhere else to see these things. So you got there because you wanted to get a glimpse of whatever the next sequel was going to be or whatever horror movie. That was where you got your first glimpse at something.
And I remember how packed those rooms used to. I mean, like they had like the biggest stars about to walk out on stage. People waiting to see trailers.
Yeah,
it was insane.
So cool. I love that.
Not to sidetrack, but I remember specifically one year. I think it was 2002 or 3. Trailers were not online yet the way they are now. I remember Freddy versus Jason being a huge fucking deal. That was a New Jersey show. And I still distinctly remember the trailer because it's totally different than any trailer they've released. That was the other thing, too, is they try to cater by showing gory bits and things like that for the horror audience to go nuts. But so I went to this thing with my brother, and there were panels, so you got to hear people speak. And I was just kind of like riveted by the whole thing. I was like, oh my God, I get to learn, because there were no DVD features yet. You're learning about the making of these movies. And that first one, I went online to meet everybody, because everybody, I didn't understand how it worked, but everybody had an 8x10 and they'd sign it for you for free. And that was it. It was just like Robert Englund, Kane Hodder, the Tall Man, Angus Scrimm, Clive Barker, like all these guys were all at that first show. Robert Zadar from Maniac Cop 2.
That's how we used to run it, was we would pay them an MG and then they had to sign for free. And no one does that anymore.
No, and that's true. And I also heard, and I mean, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but I also heard that part of it is a promotional legality. Like obviously they have to do X amount of press for a new movie with the studio. So Fango exploited that. Well, not exploited, but yeah, they exploited that. Saying, oh, well, great, you have to make an appearance. And then the company obviously wants you to go see the movie. So they will pay for X amount of 8x10s or posters and be like, great, just sign all these after you're done. So I remember that, but like it literally was so amazing that the next day, Sunday morning, I had two relatives staying with me from Argentina who didn't speak English, but were in love with American culture. And I convinced them without telling any adults. I was like, listen, we can get on the train, because they were like a year or two older than me. We can get on the train and just walk across the street and we'll be at the horror convention again. So the three of us went the next day again. And I have pictures of all of it, because that was like my first convention.
You got to post those this week. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I'll repost them. They've been floating around online forever, but I'll repost them for sure. And the greatest thing in retrospect about looking back on that is that, there's a picture of goofy Ryan Turek at like 13, same show with Clive Barker. So it's like, I could be in the background of your picture. And then little Joe Lynch was also at the same show, same age. So it's funny to now in retrospect be like, you were at that show. Oh my God. Like if we look at each other's pictures, we might see each other because we were all there.
That's really cool.
And from that moment on, I was just so hooked into going. I'd go every year. And because they were a year apart, I even went to like a Star Trek one just because I was so thirsty to get to another convention. Yeah. And I'm not a Star Trek fan. I was like, it'll be the same thing. I don't care, whatever. So I kept going. And then my segue is that slowly but surely, a lot of other similar events started to pop up. Like Chiller in New Jersey was huge. It still continues to be a huge show.
Fango, actually, we paired with them for a year. Sean and I were talking about that beforehand.
That was very awkward.
That was very bizarre. Because so many people showed up, because it was suddenly like Fango and Chiller kind of melded our marketing campaigns. And I remember that that was like my first year with my employer. So many people showed up that they ended up having to call the fire department. And the fire department told us that we had to kick like so many thousand people out. And you can't tell people to leave after they're in the building. And then people who were already online, we had to tell them they couldn't get in that day. It was insane.
It was like trivia.
Well, the issue with that was, and look, I'm going to talk candidly about it, but like Fangoria was paired. They were
trying to get away from Creation.
Yeah. Fangoria was paired with Creation, and they are an event organizer. And it was very clear that they were not seeing eye to eye on how to get the shows doing, because I remember at that period, David Cronenberg showed up, but it was in Brooklyn. And it was a real pain in the ass to get to the show. And it was very poorly attended. And even I was like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, this is a Fango show. Nobody's here. Yet Chiller, which was a few exits right into New Jersey, you couldn't even get in. It was so packed. So there was this weird period where Fangoria wanted that Chiller crowd, and they couldn't figure out how to get it. And I think Creation was a big part of that. And this is where I wanted to bring Sean in, because this is also the slow start of what I started to notice is, obviously I went to my early shows, everyone would sign for free, I'd get an 8x10, but then that Chiller show, I'd see Gunnar Hansen, I'd go up and talk to him, Leatherface, and it'd be like, oh, that's going to be $5. And I'm like, $5 for what? And he's like, oh, just to sign your thing and take a picture with you, whatever. I'm like, oh, all right, I guess that's cool. And that slowly began the shift of like, now everybody's sort of charging $5. And then gradually, that was what it started. I remember it starting at 5. Then it gradually got up to 10, where everybody was just charging for 10. And then the other thing is the panels became less, because Chiller didn't, Fango had panels. They were promoting new movies. There were little clips and things like that and presentations. Yet Chiller didn't have any of that. Chiller was, you walk around and meet people, and at the same time, you buy stuff. You buy bootlegs or posters or whatever. The advent of the internet and eBay kind of changed that a little bit. Like the urgency of it.
That's exactly eBay is what changed everything.
Right.
Just to be clear, Rob.
Yes.
Gunnar Hansen's to blame. No,
that's just
Hansen changed all
No,
of
but
it.
that is the first
Rob's
person.
mind.
That's the first person I remember charging for an autograph.
Who do you think, and this
After
might be a
years and
short
years and
question,
years.
who do you think told Gunnar Hansen and all these people at the very start, hey, we could start charging? Do you know much about the history of it before
I
you were
don't,
involved?
because just like Rob, I was a fan,
Right.
still am a fan, going to these conventions, and suddenly, they were charging. I mean, I remember, and to be perfectly honest with you, there was a partial little bit of relief in a way, because in a way, I would almost rather pay for an autograph and wait 10 minutes to meet the person than stand in line for 5 hours to get something for free.
And I understand that for sure.
And I remember doing that, man,
Yeah.
with George Romero and all these, my first, tons of convention experiences, waiting in these crazy lines to get free shit. Now, what I started to notice is as the internet started to happen and eBay started to happen, I started to notice these autograph dealers showing up at conventions, and I could pick them out. Me and my friends picked them out. There was this one dude that I remember fucking vividly, had a briefcase. He would walk up to the celebrity, open the briefcase, and pull out a stack. And they're supposed to be there to sign for free. And they would just sit there and sign them all.
Yeah.
And we'd be sitting there going, dude, really,
That's
bro?
fucked up,
I've been in
yeah.
line for like 3 hours. I got to wait for you to sign all these.
You'd think it'd be a one thing each person.
Then, sometimes I got, come on, dude, I just signed 20 for you. And let's, I got people waiting, and those fuckers went and sold them.
You still see those people show up at events around LA. I know when we had Clive Barker at the Nightbreed screening last year, the Cabal Cut screening, somebody showed up with a briefcase full of Clive Barker
Screenings
stuff.
are different because the conventions have now whittled that down because you have to pay and you do all this.
Well, they believe me.
Or not, maybe not.
They're at the airports. They know, they somehow find out when the flights are coming in. They're at the airports. They're in the hotel lobbies. They are there still.
Yeah.
And I mean, the airports is the worst. I mean, I don't know how they're getting the information, but they're getting it to find out when these celebrities are arriving. Because I'll walk off a plane with Norman and there will be 30 autograph dealers with stacks of Norman Reedus photos.
Wow.
Like, how the fuck did you know we were coming in right now? How did you know?
Andrew
Especially,
Lincoln. It's Andrew Lincoln. He's ready now like a motherfucker.
we'll talk later. I think it is. But, it's crazy. Even to the point where some of them are buying tickets, I think, and then getting refunds because they're actually at the gate as we walk off the plane.
Right, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so they're getting in past security, like to the gate. I mean,
Wow,
so
that's really
And just
it's
for the
aggressive.
record, for people listening, the people that have the nerve and gall to do this kind of thing are really unbelievable people, because we went to me and Bekah went to Exorcist 3 last year, where they had the New Beverly at midnight.
Oh, yeah, there
never
was
an issue.
hordes of
I've never
people.
seen an issue like this. They announced Brad Dourif the day of, and he did a Q&A before, and the second the Q&A was done, there must have been 10 or 20 people that
They had
blocked him
stacks.
from leaving the stage.
Yeah.
And they were trying to start the movie, and they had stacks. And I was like, I've never seen
But it wasn't even
vultures.
like horror or Exorcist 3 stuff.
So one
was-
floor of a cuckoo's nest,
Whatever. I mean, honestly, it could have been. I don't know, but I'd never seen something like that happen
Yeah.
at the New Beverly, where a celebrity was like almost attacked by people.
And would that be because he doesn't ever do
Disrespectfully.
any conventions?
He does.
He does.
Not
Brad?
much,
Okay.
but he does.
But I feel like if you can get him at an event for free when nobody else is around him, that's they could sell those for way more than having to pay for it at a convention. So
Yeah.
So So I mean, it's interesting how that's changed. So eBay and the internet has been a pivotal force behind why that's had to start happening.
Yeah, because I think at some point people like Gunnar started to see the stuff for sale online and said, well, wait a second, people are paying $20 for my autograph. Why am I giving it away?
Yeah.
And, one of the things fans say to me all the time that are very, naive is they're like, well, dude, why the fuck's Gunnar charging, man? He was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's got to be rich. He's got to be making residuals. Like, dude, these guys aren't making residuals. Do you know? I mean, the Halloween people, you've heard the stories. I mean, do you think Brian Andrews is living off of Tommy Doyle money from the first film? No,
Yeah.
I mean, this is how a lot of people make their livings, and, that kind of crosses over into another topic I want to touch on is like, people one thing I hear a lot about, and obviously Norman's name gets mentioned. Why is he charging so much? Why is he even charging? He's on a #1 TV show. He's got to be raking it in, blah, blah, blah. What these people don't realize, it's AMC. It's not NBC. It's not network money. They're not getting Seinfeld money. They're not getting Friends money. When you look at the people that are at these conventions, they're people from shows that are on like FX, AMC, the WB, you're not seeing the Big Bang Theory guy, signing autographs, you know what I mean? Because they're getting paid crazy cash, So keep that in perspective. Just because he's on the cover of Entertainment Weekly this week, doesn't mean he's getting Seinfeld money.
And unfortunately for him, he's on a show where if you did try to push for higher money with
they can kill you off.
Yeah, they'll just kill you.
Kill you off. And that's tough. I imagine that is like a weird thing hanging over your head always,
And plus it's an ensemble cast. I mean, it's not like there's one, it's not a Seinfeld. It's an ensemble. So.
Well, I think it kind of, no, you're right. But I do think if you killed Andrew Lincoln or Daryl Dixon, if either of those two go, it does lose its focus.
Yeah,
those
think
two
a lot
characters
of people
are the things that stabilize it.
Yeah,
and I think it would kind of become harder to watch. I think personally,
at some point, the show is going to
do something.
It's going to jump the shark at some point,
and there'll probably be that.
And that's what it'll be. The ratings at some point, whether it's a year from now, 3 years from now, the ratings are going to drop. They're going to panic and they're going to say, we need to do something for a big bang to get people. And that's when they'll kill a major character.
Right.
And the ratings will shoot up for a couple weeks and then it'll die and it'll be canceled.
And then they'll have to bring him back again, like they do in Supernatural. We'll just kill him and keep bringing him back.
At least they don't do that. Well, they do kind of sometimes in flashbacks or whatever. But I mean, there is a new series spinoff, obviously. It'll be interesting to see if the fandom crosses over to a new show.
I don't know.
It's impossible to know unless we see what they do.
I think the real horror fans that like The Walking Dead, that aren't like the soccer moms that just...
I'm one. I'm a genuine Walking Dead fan.
I like the show too.
I love it.
I like
every
it too.
week. I get excited about it. It feels good watching it. It's...
I withhold.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll see how it does. I think the hardcore horror fans will definitely give it a shot.
Yeah, definitely.
But will it? I don't know. My
Especially
fear
shot in LA. I'm like, I don't know how you can do Los Angeles.
My fear is oversaturating.
I think you're right
because it's zombie everything right now, and
when your show's #1, why fuck with that?
I feel like instead of putting all this money into a sideshow, it's like put that money towards the original show and make it the best show it
get
could
them out
be.
of Georgia.
Executives don't think like that.
No, obviously.
Let's go to Jamaica for a side
Didn't you see
storyline.
the last episode? They're going to Washington.
I know they're going somewhere.
Well, I mean, okay, so we talked about eBay and how that happened. I mean, for me as a fan going to these shows, because look, you have to pay regardless, anywhere from $15 to $20, $25 to get in. That's just admission right off the bat.
And sometimes even higher, right? Like,
sometimes higher.
Was pretty high.
Well, I mean, also Fango did VIP packages, which I would always kind of spurge for, where you'd pay $150 because that entitled you front row seats to the panels, which to me were a big deal. I wanted to see people talk about this stuff. And also you got first dibs on getting autographs, and normally they were free with your VIP package. Not always. And that was the real struggle where I lost faith in doing Fango shows, because I remember I went one year, had a gold pass, and then the panels are even to this day, they just become reunion panels. And it's like, I already know all these stories through DVDs, and I've already been to the panels already. It's like, I like the panels where it's a new movie and I get to see a little glimpse of it and, get to meet. Perfect example is Sam Raimi showing up for Drag Me to Hell, which I thought was like, wow, they got Sam to show up for this. He showed a great scene, signed autographs right after, etc. But that was like and then all of a sudden it's like I'd get up and try to get, I had a VIP pass and I'd try to get Paul Naschy to sign something. Like, no, that's an additional $20. And I'm like, but I paid $100 and some odd. Why am I going to pay another $20 on top of what I paid just for one extra autograph? I was like, that's not worth it. To me, where it got to the point was, I used to love getting my DVD signed, or just something that I owned, because that meant something to me. I'd watch that movie all the time. I was like, it'd be neat to have so-and-so's signature on it. But when I started showing up to shows and they started charging $20 for my item, the thing that I already bought and put money into, I decided, you know what? If I'm going to pay $20, no matter what, whether it's my item or something that they have, then I want something that they have, like an 8x10 of a cool photo that I've never seen that I can't get anywhere else. Yeah. To me, that feels like a more worthwhile experience. Like, all right, well, I'm going to show up. I'm going to get something directly from them. I'm going to support them, and it's going to be something neat that I don't have. So for a while there, that's what I would do. I would collect 8x10s and stuff like that they sell of cool promotional shots or whatever.
Well, I know there's been a mentality amongst fans of that. At least I've experienced this a lot with fans going, well, I already bought your movie, and they're holding it like, I bought your movie. Why won't you sign this for me? I put money in your pocket, not realizing that's not how it works. I mean, perfect example. If somebody came up and said, even though I don't charge anything for my autograph, but if somebody said that to me about Black Waters of Echo's Pond, I'd be like, dude, I got paid a flat fee for that. I don't get a dime. That thing could have sold 1 trillion copies. I haven't seen another penny. They don't realize that's how the business works. These guys aren't getting all these crazy
who are
residuals.
Some of the other people, I mean, just for people who don't know, I don't know all the people you represent. Who are some of the other people we might know?
Dude, I have over 200 clients.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, if bigger names, I guess, like John Bernthal, Sarah Wayne Callies from Walking Dead, Linda Hamilton, James Remar.
Of the smaller people, is there somebody who you like just because it's hard, like it was close to your heart when you signed some of these people?
Oh, my God. Most of my client list is that's me being a nerd wanting to meet that person. That's the greatest thing about this gig is, people think, I mean, I think people look at me and they're like, oh, he's just fucking raking in the money. All he cares is about the money, Norman, blah, 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 blah. Right. Dude, I'm out there. I booked, I remember one show I booked, what's his name? Peter, is it Giuliani? I always met, who played the Prowler. And the Prowler, I can't remember his last name.
The killer from the Prowler.
The killer from the Prowler.
Joseph baby.
Derek McKinnon, the killer from Terror Train, Kenny Hampton, cool. And Wayne Doba, the Funhouse freak from the Funhouse. Oh, yeah, nice. I had all three of them at a convention.
And that's all you. You would find those guys.
Yeah. I found them all. I got them to do their first show. I was psyched. I was like, man, there's so many horror fans are going to turn out. You guys are going to kill it. I'm going to, this is going to be the best. And they didn't do very well. And I'm like, wow, people don't have the enthusiasm that I have for these guys.
That sucks. Yeah.
Where
was that? Do you remember?
That was Horror Hound, probably like 2009.
So that's
it's
Canada?
Like last year.
Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last year at Texas Frightmare, we were so excited because the guy from Basket Cases.
Was right next to us.
Kevin.
And
that blew my mind.
We were so thrilled. No one else was like...
No, that was the coolest person I met there easily.
I thought Elric was like starstruck.
We were so thrilled when we walked in. We were like, the Basket Case guy is here. Everyone else was like, psyched about Ghost or, the Slipknot people.
Yeah, Sean was there.
Like
we all played trivia together.
Yeah.
That's right.
But we were psyched about him. So it's just a nerd moment.
It's different levels of nerddom, right?
Well, it's interesting because I'd say in the heyday of say Chiller, like in the mid 2000s, that would have been a big deal. But what I've noticed in the last couple of years is because I used to love going to. One that I would trek out to is Monster Mania,
which is in
Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
They also have a Baltimore, or it's not Baltimore, it's like Huntington.
Yeah.
But
the main one's Cherry Hill, which is right outside Philly. Mm-hmm. And I used to drive out and stay the weekend. And we should talk about that too. That's a big part of the convention thing because, all right, so there's one thing to take the train to go to New York and go one day or whatever. But if you're going to drive 2.5 hours to Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which I would do, then it became a weekend thing where it's like, you know what? I'm going to book a room. I'm going to go with 5 of my friends. We're going to share some space. We're going to hang out. And what was cool about that is once you're at the hotel, everybody that is part of the show, the celebrities or whatever, they're all staying there. There's nowhere to go except the lobby bar because there's nothing else to do. So that was interesting. The whole weekend portion of a convention would then become, well, you're staying there and you get to the bar and you get to talk to Michael Berryman or Tony Todd or whoever's down there. So that's another, I don't know. I think that's an interesting evolution of the convention is going away for a weekend, spending the whole time there, not only maybe meeting people at their tables, but then getting the opportunity to actually hang out with them afterwards at the bar in the lobby and just chit chatting. I mean, there's been so many crazy experiences I've had with that.
And some of them surprise you too, like Michael Berryman, his voice.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And that he's the nicest guy on the planet.
With his voice, I couldn't even believe how nice his voice was.
I've had so many conversations with Michael Berryman about transcendental meditation.
Really?
That I can't. He's very spiritual.
He's exactly how he is in Weird Science when he's like, "Can we just keep this between us? I don't want to move it." That's him.
That's him. It's very. He's just very soft spoken, and he's
really
very
funny.
spiritual, and he's very into the auras and cheese and feeling your personality and how it meshes with the world, and it's
cool
not
dude.
what you would expect.
You know what? You just reminded me of something. This is something I wasn't going to bring up, but it's kind of funny you bring this up about the hanging out at the bars afterwards.
Yeah.
There was a promoter, I'm not going to say who, Midwest, that actually went online and did a full rant about fans just showing up after hours to hang out at the bar to try to meet the celebrities and party, blah, 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 and not buy tickets into his show. He got a lot of backlash for being such a dick about it. It was kind of funny. Wow. it was like, I kind of get what you're saying, but they're showing up. They're spending money in the hotel bar. I mean, they have a right to be there if it's up to the celebrity to go hide in the room if they want to. You know?
Exactly. They don't have to.
You guys were discussing it before. The thing I'm most interested in, I feel like kind of an outsider on the topic, is when did it go wrong in terms of for the conventions having to pay the big amounts? And I remember before we were talking about
when did you make the transition to being a rep? Because I don't even know this story.
Well, this is how it happened. I was doing the journalism thing. So I think at some point it was Horror Channel kind of dubbed me their on-camera guy, and I was doing interviews on camera at conventions. And while I was getting into that, I was really starting to get friendly with the promoters. And at the same time, having been going to the conventions for years and making friends with a lot of the celebrities, even before journalism, I knew celebrities, I knew promoters. It just kind of was all starting to fall into place. And I think what happened, how it started, is a certain celebrity who I'm not going to name because I don't particularly care for the guy. He hit me up one time and said, "Hey man," he calls me up. "Hey, that promoter at the show, I've been trying to get in there and he won't call me back. And, could you put in the good word, blah, blah, blah." So I did. I called up, I got him in the show and got him a deal. And he was like, "Dude, that's awesome. Thanks." About a month or two later, he calls me again. "That other promoter, blah, blah, blah." And I'm just like, okay, this is starting to feel like a job, And I knew of a couple guys that did this, and I really didn't know what they did. And I kind of picked their brain the next time I saw them, like, "Hey, what do you get? How does this work?" And he told me, they'll fly you in, they'll put you up. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. They fly you in and put you up and give you a hotel room? And I was like, fucking A. Yeah. So, because here I was, the horror nerd, flying myself in, putting myself up, and at the same time was trying to promote my Horrors Hall Grounds crap, right? So I'm like, dude, I could go to conventions, have a blast, all the shit I'm into, promote my stuff on their dime, and maybe make a couple bucks. I mean, I didn't even care about the making a couple bucks. But so I started repping this guy. And then I was like, okay, who else do I know? I just did the Halloween documentary. I have everybody's phone numbers from all the Halloween films. Just started calling people. Hey, yeah. And Sean. Yeah, sure. Let's do it. I started booking them. And next thing I know, I'm getting flown into conventions, and I was like, this is cool. And all I cared about was going to the show. I didn't care about the money. I had a regular job. I was in the mortgage business. I was a loan officer. That's what and unfortunately, I was a self-employed loan officer, so I was able to leave and travel. And and then it just started that all of a sudden it was like I had more, and we're talking lower level celebrities, So I was make like $1,000 in a weekend. I was like, this is awesome, right? I'm partying, I'm having a great time on their dime, and I'm bringing home some cash.
Paid to go to a convention, essentially.
That was just like, this is amazing. So I was just like, this is great just for this. And then it all kind of changed one day when Stacey Nelkin from Halloween 3, I was talking to her on the phone one day, And she said, oh, I've got a friend, my best friend. That's what she said. Oh, my best friend, she would probably do really good at these things. You should talk to her. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, who's your best friend? Because it's usually somebody terrible you've never heard of. Like, oh, she was in 2 episodes of Chips, And she goes, oh, Linda Hamilton? I'm like, yeah, I think she would do all right. And she hooked me up with Linda. And then suddenly I had a legit star.
Yeah, for real.
And that kicked open doors to all these Comic-Cons that that would never talk to me in a million years because I was just doing horror conventions.
Now, Linda wanted to do this. It wasn't like you pursued her and had to convince her? Or?
I pursued her and had to convince her.
Okay.
I mean, it was about...
But Stacey thought that she would be into it.
Yeah, and she said, well, I'll talk to Linda. And so then she's like, okay, Linda said, yeah, give her a call. Here's her number. And it took her about 3 months to call me back. And then I found out she's just notoriously flaky like that. So it's cool. But I went to her house, met her, and, that's how that relationship started. And just having a legit name like that, like, legitimized me. And suddenly people were calling me. And basically my business is 99% referral based now. I don't usually ever really go after anybody anymore. I mean, I have, like, there's promoters will come up to me and say, hey, can you get blah, blah, blah? And I'll try, but for the most part, it's other actors going, hey, man, like, James Remar, perfect example. Yeah. John Bernthal calls me up one day and he goes, hey, man, you want to work with James Remar? And I'm just like, well, yeah, and he's right here. Here he is. Puts him on the phone. Remar's on the phone. I'm like, oh, shit. Hey, how you doing? And that's how it happened. Like the Jamie Lee Curtis thing called me out of the blue. Like, oh, wow. Tommy Lee Wallace gave her my number because she was trying to track down all the Halloween people to sign these masks for a charity thing.
There you go.
My phone rings because Tommy said, oh, call Sean. He has everybody's number. Phone rings. Sean. I'm like, hello? Jamie Lee Curtis. And dude, as soon as she said it, I recognized the voice. I'm like, holy shit. Yes, you are. How are you doing? Hey, and that's how that started. I mean, it was just, I dumb lucked my way into a lot of this. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Was that the person who most blew your mind that you ended up working with, of just people you loved watching?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because dude, Reedus, when I started working with Reedus, never seen anything he'd been in. I mean, it was before Walking Dead. I'd never seen Boondock Saints.
What?
So how did you work with? How do you decide to work with somebody?
I'm a huge Boondock
I know, it's great.
Well, that was another agent asked me to help him get them booked. And I did. And through that, he dropped the ball a bunch of times. And basically they came to me, Sean Patrick Flannery mainly, came to me and said, dude, this guy's dead weight. We got to get rid of him. You can either stay with us or go with him. So I actually went to that guy and said, hey, look, I'm sure they've told you. Do you want, if you're my friend first, if you don't want me to work with them, I won't. But if not, they're going to work with this other chick that you hate, which, I knew he hated. And they said, we'll work with her if you don't want to work with us. And he said, no, it was my fault. It's cool. You stick with them. Funny side story to that. I'm not going to name the person, but then Reedus blew up like 6 months later. Everybody's going to him going, dude, what happened? Why aren't you working with him anymore? Sean Clark stole him from me and to save face. So now, of course, he and I don't really talk because I'm the asshole that stole him, even though that's not what happened. But there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. And do you remember what that's like to be watching, say, The Walking Dead when he was first done it, like the first episode? Did you have it in your mind like, fuck, he's pretty cool in this? Like,
well, no, because if you remember in the beginning, his part was really small.
Yeah.
But I do remember when he first told me I think it was when Creation tried to do their weekend of horrors without Fango.
Oh, right.
And there's a big story there.
It was in Burbank.
Right?
I think I remember.
They went back to Burbank for it.
Yeah, where Monsterpalooza is. And I was there with them. And I remember Reedus telling me, I totally remember this. He goes, oh, yeah, dude, I just got this new show, Walking Dead. It's based on this horror comic, it might be pretty good, right? Like that. And I go, yeah, might. Just kind of like, he's being hopeful. That's pat him on the back and that's good spirit.
And also they're like, oh, well, he was supposed to actually be the Rooker character, but he liked them both Frank Darabont liked them both so much that he's like, I want them both on the show. I'll just make them brothers. It doesn't exist. That's what happened was they both auditioned for that same
Darabont
character.
getting kicked. I mean, I don't even know if you can even tell me this, but Darabont being kicked. I mean, do people who Darabont literally started some of these people's career. Do they still give him props for that? Or, I mean, I imagine the actors are still very thankful. Okay,
yeah,
good.
I'm sure.
That's all I care
sure.
about. It'd be crazy for them not to, because,
Well, I mean, clearly Norman does.
And Rick as well. All these characters. It's like...
But, the funny thing is I remember when Darabont got cut loose, I mean, Norman was definitely nervous because it's like, oh, shit.
You get rid of some of his regulars.
Why, are they going to keep me around? I'm his creation,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of a legal thing going on there. That's why they've never added that character to a comic,
right.
Because it's really Darabont's creation.
Oh, yeah.
So he was nervous that they were just going to off him. But fortunately, the fandom saved him.
Rising, yeah.
He's easily the most popular character. I mean, Andrew Lincoln's obviously so solid and such a big part of the show. But yeah, Daryl's definitely the fan pick of the show.
Well, what's funny about him in general, not to harp on Norman Reedus for a long time, but whatever.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Boondock Saints fan. I met him like 10, 15 years ago in New York, and he's always been a super humble guy. And
he still is, yeah.
People go really nuts for him and Sean just because of the Boondock Saints thing.
Yeah.
So I just can't imagine.
Oh, Sean.
I mean,
Sean.
When The Walking Dead kicked off the way it did, it's like, it was one of those instances where I was like, you know what? I've met that guy. He's a good dude. He deserves that success. But I mean, the level of it, to me, I'm amazed when I see you post little videos from like freaking Japan or when you go out of country of how crazy and big it's gotten.
It's like that everywhere with him. I mean, it's gotten to the point. It's almost not fun to hang out with him anymore. I mean, because it's everywhere you go. It's just they're on him because people recognize him immediately. You see it happen, and then they just like, oh my god, and they start following you. I mean, it's like it's crazy. I mean, I've never experienced anything like that. It's like when you watch those old Beatle videos of them running down the street. It's like that. I mean, we were being chased through a fucking Japanese train station by hordes of screaming girls,
Amazing.
So how do you negotiate that into the contracts? Because that's one of the things that always amused me when we would book the Fango shows is the contracts that we would get of like, so-and-so will only take this particular type of hummus or wants this particular type of pen. Like, how do you negotiate like security risks?
Well, security-wise, I guess we're pretty laxed. I mean, I just go by what the celebrity tells me. But to be perfectly honest with you, and if you asked any promoter who's worked with me, they will tell you Sean is by far the easiest guy to deal with because I don't even really deal with contracts. I mean, unless I feel that the show is, maybe it's a brand new show that I don't know if these guys are going to be able to come through with what they're saying. If I have faith in my client, like I can put Norman Reedus in an empty parking lot and I know he's going to kill it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I don't need to say, hey, give me a crazy guarantee. I mean, quite frankly, he doesn't have a guarantee. I mean, my guarantee is that he's going to just bring the fans, as soon as they hear he's there. And, some people might say, well, that's a little irresponsible of you. I use, it's judgment. I use judgment on everything. Like we're doing a show this weekend, this brand new show in Fort Lauderdale. Shock PopCon, which has a phenomenal lineup. But they're brand new. So I did contracts with my people for that show. Mm-hmm. But I don't ever ask for like particular foods or anything. I mean, a
lot of people do, right? I know.
Yeah,
and that was one of my first jobs for one of our conventions was they called it celebrity liaison. And what it meant was like contract bitch. Cause it would seriously be like, okay, well, you got to find this type of hummus. I remember being at the office. I had to take a limo from the Palms Casino in Vegas because the only cars that they had there were limos. And so I had to rent a limo to take me to Office Max to find a particular type of pen that John Waters had put in his contract that he would only sign with this particular type of pen. So I'm like taking a limo to Office Max to buy pens. It was kind of wonderful.
I have never done that. Ever.
I feel like
and every
just
promoter.
Knowing you, I feel like none of your clients like ask for these kind of things.
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, if I've worked with someone who was like that, and I fired them because if I'm not having fun doing what I do, I don't want to do it. So there's a particular actress that I'll tell you guys about off the air who I basically said, you know what? after she bitched me out about some shit, I said, yeah, we're done. And she's like, what? And I said, we're done. You know, I don't, guess what? I'm self-employed. I don't have to work with you.
Yeah. And that's the reason Jamie Lee only did one convention.
She was asking for this hummus.
I'm just framing it.
It was the Activia. I mean, she had to have a case of strawberry. But no, seriously, I've never done that. But with that said, the promoters love me for that. And if I say to a promoter, hey, Norman wants a cheeseburger right now, they will fucking go get it. And they'll get it quick. I mean, that's because they respect and they want to take care of the guests. They want to keep them happy. But we're never asking for crazy shit. You know, no green M&Ms and stuff like that. I mean, it's nothing like that. I mean, I'm pretty standard. Get us to and from the airport to the hotel, nice room, you know, and maybe a per diem, you know, a small per diem, nothing crazy, just so they can get food. Which, I mean, I know it's kind of like, really, per diem, they're making $20 an autograph or whatever, but that's a standard thing. Yeah.
Truthfully, I mean, I understand the per diems because usually when you're at a convention, especially if you're working, I just threw a whole bunch of beer cans. I'm sorry, guys. I am so drunk.
Just quit saying Fango.
Blasted. No, when we're at the conventions, and especially when you're working them, you are there for like 12-hour stretches. And by the time it ends, you eat whatever is at the hotel. And I know at Texas Fright Fair.
We almost starved to death.
We did that one day. Yeah, it was really hard at the
couldn't
hotel,
find anything.
Because there was always a fucking line for like 2 hours, and you don't want to wait in it. I mean, we ended up doing room service, costing a fortune.
We tried to get back into the airport across the street and realized that we had to buy a ticket.
So did I, because I was like, well, there's a TGI Fridays across the street at the airport, and they wouldn't let me in. And there was one night at Texas Frightmare last year that I went up and ordered a cheeseburger by room service because it was quicker to get it by room service than to go eat. But either way, it was a $25 cheeseburger because you're buying it at the hotel.
If it wasn't for one of our fans, John Holland, taking us to a barbecue place, we would have had a kind of a shitty time. Like, it really did change the whole experience, having someone who wanted to help you out and hang out with you and take you somewhere cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there are a lot of conventions like Texas Frightmare, which is one of my favorites. Love them. Love Lloyd. They're great.
Yeah, apparently Lloyd left you like a love letter on our Facebook page.
Yeah, I'm going to start reading questions soon.
Oh, shit.
Something about how...
for Sean, why are you so dreamy?
And that's from Texas Frightmare wants to know this.
Lloyd, I'm so dreamy. It's my parents. I mean, it's all genetics.
Genes,
my dad's got strong sperm, and there it is. Boom. That's how my hair stands up the way it does.
Talking about before you go on, you were talking about Daryl Dixon, kind of fan club of that character. I remember seeing something you posted from Japan that looked bonkers.
Yeah, we talked about that while you were in the bathroom.
In the bathroom. Is that the craziest thing you've seen in terms of crowd for any of your fans? I mean, besides Jamie Lee.
A lot of listeners he already talked about
they talked about Elric left and went to pee, and so we covered
behind
this.
the curtain, guys.
Well, for me, I think one of the crazy things for me is the fandom that's happening towards me. Now, here's the thing. It's like,
I can speak to this too a little bit.
It's kind of nuts. I mean, and I know it's because of Norman. I mean, I've always had like a weird horror nerd following because of Horrors Hallowed Grounds and shit like that. But suddenly all these chicks are like, oh, Sean Clark, blah, blah, blah. And I know it's because of Norman, and I see people
your
talk.
Your dreamy hair that stands up on end.
Yeah,
it's strong sperm, but yes,
that's sheer willpower. That's not hair gel. And I've seen some dudes talk shit online. That say the only reason they care about him is because of fucking Norman Reedus. He'd be nobody without him. Well, guess what? I know that, and I'm cool with it. I'm totally cool with it. Right. Because the bottom line is, without somebody or something, they wouldn't know about you. This is how they found out about me.
Just like Norman Reedus without The Walking Dead wouldn't be somebody.
Norman Reedus would be a nobody without the fucking Walking Dead.
Right.
There's Boondock Saints fans all out there. I'm telling you.
No, believe me. And Mimic.
That's true. The only thing I wanted to speak about that is Sean, if there's any doubt, Sean is one of the biggest, everything you talked about in terms of going to the shows and collecting and making an event of it, he's one of the biggest fans I've ever met, because I went to his house once, and I walk in, I hope I don't embarrass you with this.
No.
I walk in, and to the right, the first thing I see is a goddamn original Clive Barker painting on the fucking wall. This giant thing. I'm like, it's a Clive Barker original. He tells me the whole story, how he got it. Then we walk up to his arcade in his house.
The Clarkade.
The Clarkade. And you've gotten a glass case like the clown from Poltergeist. And I'm just like, oh, that's pretty neat. Where'd you get that replica? And you're like, nope, that's from the movie.
No.
And I'm like, no. And he's like, they made 3 of them, and that's
Shit,
one.
you own the thing that fucked up most of us.
Oh,
wow.
Like,
yes.
literally most of our generation.
I
So-
seriously would have said, "Oh, it's probably in Bob's basement or something." It's
Well,
in Sean
he's got
Clark's
one.
house.
Can we hear how that was found after you're done?
Yes.
Of course. And then, I mean, and again, you just get really, you know what it is? Sean becomes a kid and very enthusiastic. And I mean, he's got one mask from, I think, every Halloween movie. Is that right?
As
on?
far as screen used ones, from 3 to Resurrection.
Screen used masks
Wow.
in glass cases in a little room. And I'm just like, I can't believe this. It's pretty amazing. So your collection you're like the new Bob Burns, essentially.
And you know what's
Yeah.
funny? When I did my movie, Black Waters, I tried to grab everything on set. Like, as soon as a scene was done, I would steal something.
Right.
and in my contract, the writer's contract, because I wrote the fucking thing, I knew I knew the centerpiece of the movie was the game.
And that
So-
game was gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
It was a beautiful sculpt.
I wish the game was as good as the movie. Or the movie was as good as the game, sorry. But anyway, I knew how important this game was going to be. So in my contract, I said, I get the game, and they put it in the contract. And I remember one of the producers was like, at the end, it was like, oh, yeah, so I'm taking that. And I'm like, no, you're not. I am. and he goes, no, I'm fucking taking that. I go, guess what? It's in my contract, bitch. And he was so pissed.
Wow.
He was pissed.
You deserve it, though.
I totally do.
Yeah.
But
So-
I did have to buy the goat head, the animatronic goat man head. I had to buy that from the fucking effects guy. He wouldn't give it to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that how this works? Is you just befriend a lot of the effects dudes? Because I feel like they're the ones that keep a lot of these props and
Well,
stuff.
I will say this. Greg Nicotero gave me a screen-used Halloween 5 mask.
Oh,
and
cool.
he gave it to me I was just a fan of that. I came up to him at a convention. This, to me, cemented the coolness of Greg Nicotero for life from this one thing. I had kind of become friendly with him at conventions. He'd go, hey, dude. I'd go, hey, I mean, now we know each other really well. But and I was just like, hey, man, I'm a big Halloween nerd. I have like a mask from every film, but I don't have a Part 5 mask. I know KMB did the mask. Do you still have the mold? Is there a way I could just get a copy, just a blank pull? And he's like, yeah, dude, here's my number. Call me at the shop, I'll have one of my guys, pour one up for you. And I'm just like, holy fuck, right? So he gives me, I'm thinking this guy's never going to follow through. I called him up at KMB and said, hey, remember me, blah, blah, blah. And he's all, yeah. He's all, okay, yeah. You know what? Hey, I think I got one of the ones we used in the movie in my garage. Would you want one of those? Or would you want that one? Or do you want us to pour up a new one? I go,
no, I'll take that.
That would be cool. He fucking put it in a box, shipped it to my house. Swear to God. I was probably 27.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I was just like freaking out when it showed up. I was just like, holy shit, dude just sent me a screen used mask. Now today he'd probably go, fuck, that was stupid. I know what that's worth. It wasn't really the collector's market yet and eBay and everything, but I still, hey,
But
cheers.
it's karma
Yeah.
because he's also gone on to become a really good director. Like, I think he's actually, besides
one of
Ernest
the best
Dickerson,
on-
he's definitely the
one of the
next
best on there, yeah.
Those two are, always the best ones, and he takes risks on it.
Yeah.
And he feels kind of like a successor to Romero, like in terms of
yeah.
making films
Yeah.
because he's organically part of it because of Day
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
But his work's really good.
So to answer your question about the Poltergeist clown.
Yes.
Yeah, I need to know
Yeah.
because that is the moment. One of the
We
that and
really
Creep Show.
need to do a props
That's the
episode. We
moments.
really do.
Yeah. Have you ever, has anyone offered to shoot something at your place? Just because you're like the horror cribs. There should be not a horror's Hallowed ground, but
Actually,
an episode.
well,
of your
remember
stuff.
Sandy Clora's doc? That was shot at my house.
Oh, that's right. But I mean,
my
but
interview.
focusing on your collection. Like, that was
No.
a doc about somebody else.
No.
We need to work on that somehow.
Yeah, but I mean, there are some shots in the opening of Horror's Hallowed Grounds of my collection, like the quick shots.
Not good enough.
Yeah,
We
I
need
know.
to do
I
an
know.
in-depth
Well, it's
thing.
funny. I get so many questions from fans going, "Dude, did I just see the fucking Poltergeist clown in the opening of Horror's Hallowed?"
Like that one I couldn't believe.
That is
it's like,
actually
oh,
unbelievable.
where'd you get that?
So, me and my buddy Darren Roberts, another horror nerd friend of mine, ex-bandmate, obsessed over the Poltergeist clown. He was more obsessed with it than me. And I guess he would just constantly search eBay for years. And this was probably 99, I think, maybe, I'm guessing. One day he calls me up and goes, dude, you're not going to fucking believe it. The poltergeist clown is on eBay right now. And I'm like, you're shitting me. Where? I go look, and it just said, like, it was something like poltergeist clown. I mean, it wasn't even listed like screen used. Yeah. It just said like poltergeist clown. And so it wasn't listed properly. So I'm thinking, okay, man, not too many people might find this. I think we might be. And it was really kind of a low bid. So I go on there, man, and I he didn't have the money. At the time, he was tight, and he's like, dude, I know you have the cash right now. Go for it. And I'm like, okay. So I just sat there, and I sniped that motherfucker with like 5 seconds left. Literally, like, I think I put in 3,500, and it was like, it sold for like 34.50. Oh my God. So I just nabbed it, and I got it. And I was just like, holy shit. It was the son of the woman who made him for the movie. She had a copy. And she had passed away, and he sold it. And it came with I've got a letter on poltergeist letterhead from Frank Marshall, the producer, to her, telling her how much Toby and Steven Spielberg loved her work. And it came with a poltergeist envelope stamped with a 1982 Clash of the Titans stamp. And I got it framed, Shit. And anyway, the funniest part about it is literally 30 seconds after I won that, my phone rings, and it was a collector dude I knew who was also trying to get it. And he's like, you motherfucker. And he's like, dude, you beat me by like $100. I'm just like, sorry, bro.
I always wonder about the worth of that. I look at something like that and I go, that thing must be worth like $100,000. But because I guess it's a Treasure Hunters. Remember that show?
Yeah.
They spurred it. I watched that and go, like, those kind of things that are that iconic. You know?
I stole it at that point. Stole it. I've been offered $30,000 for it.
Yeah,
from a collector.
I bet it could go even higher.
I never even realized what props are worth until I see them. There's always prop dealers that set up at Comic-Con, at San Diego Comic-Con, and then I look at the prices and see people buying them. Well, actually, even last year, Gary Tunnicliffe is a friend of mine, and he knows that I'm like a diehard fish movie fanatic. So he gave me one of the Piranha. From the new Piranha film, which is sitting properly on my bookshelf. It's kind of the center of my collection. And then I went to Comic-Con last year, and somebody was selling another one of these Piranha that had been made for the film, because they probably made like 12 of them, because they were like throwing them at people, so I'm sure they got the shit kicked out of them. But they were selling them for like $5,000, and I was like, it's a rubber fish. It means something to me, but people were buying them. So,
wow.
And that was for a recent movie.
Was 2 years ago. And anyone there'll be a few of you who saw this. I couldn't even believe it. The head from Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. And it was for sale. The only reason I didn't do it, honestly, I was going to do it. It's $1,800. I was actually going to do it. The only reason I didn't is because it seemed so random that a part of me kept questioning, this can't be real. And I was going to open a Sam Peckinpah museum if I bought it. I was like, fuck it, I'm opening a Peckinpah museum.
It would not surprise me the least if you bought the head from Bring Me the Head.
But it was real in the end. It turned out there might have been a couple of them, but it was like, there's the daughter, same kind of story. It's like a daughter of someone. No one's really looking for that because you don't know it exists. But it was a head in a bag most of the movie,
I know at least 5 people who would be like really excited to see that.
I wish I had. Actually, I gotta say, I would probably regret that.
But I have to tell you, it's not a prop. But guess what I bought off eBay this week? Calls back to our episode from last week. I bought a Zariah board.
Vincent Galluzzo,
nice. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm kind of psyched. I bought one on eBay. It's vintage. It's from like, and it's not like a Parker Brothers one or anything like that. Because I saw like apparently Parker Brothers started, or it wasn't even Parker Brothers. It was another game company started making it in the 70s.
Yeah.
And this one is like old school, like one of the
I'll look at it, but I won't touch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Zariah board. I don't have a clue how to play. Apparently,
I think we're going to hit you with fan questions.
Real quick, I have to say a prop that I tried to get and I bid up to $11,000 for, and I just said, fuck it, I can't go any higher than that because it was already retarded price to go to, was the Hero Excalibur chainsaw from Chainsaw 3.
Oh, yeah, which is
they only made one of.
That's pretty cool.
And they had it. I was looking at it, and I was about to come in my pants. I know the collector who bought it. And the funny thing is, I was so dreading that person was going to go after it because that person's like a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
And they basically, the auction person I talked to like on the side afterwards, they're not supposed to tell me this shit. Yeah. But she said, he told me, just whatever.
Yeah,
like just keep going. Just whatever it is, don't worry about it. I mean,
the only house like that I've seen is Bill Malone's house. It has some just beautiful Roman the Robot and stuff. But here's an idea. I haven't seen this. I would love to see, even if it was to pop up like a Monster Palooza type thing, like all the best of those personal collections put together for people to come and see, like whether it's a permanent space.
It's a security issue, I'm sure. I mean, would you?
Elliot
is super careful.
No,
about
Elliot has asked me to bring the Poltergeist clown for the museum, but if you saw where it is, dude, it was such a bitch to get up there. It's like in a glass case, like super high, like up above like a staircase. It's like scary. It was scary to get it up there. No fucking way. When I take it down, I'm moving. That's when I take it down.
Is that the prize would you consider that the prize of your collection?
Yeah, absolutely. Easily. Yeah.
One of the coolest props I've ever seen. I met Jennifer Aspinall, who did all of these. She did effects on all these movies. In her garage is the toilet monster from Street Trash. Oh, cool. It's still in her garage, like in Melrose. It's cool. Just beautiful. And it's just sitting there.
Everyone's got their own thing. That's a cool thing about props. Like somebody Poltergeist might not be as big, but most of us have scared the shit out. But
no, that is like, I think that's the one item that has scared the shit out of the most kids.
Yeah, I think so.
In general.
And the new trailer. I'm glad that they kept the clown in.
I got a quick story about that if you want to hear it.
Yes. Is this the one you told me?
I think I did. So when I heard they were doing the Poltergeist remake, I contacted the production company, kind of inspired by the Chainsaw 3D film, because I don't know if you know this, that they actually went and got the original Leatherface's original chainsaw from a collector that's used in Chainsaw 3D, the real prop.
Oh, cool.
So I thought that was such a cool touch, even though the movie is whatever. Even though that chick is smoking hot.
Yeah, she's really cool.
But anyway, so I thought, you know what? Maybe they would like to have the real clown. Plus, if it would only increase the value of my clown, right? It's in another movie.
Right.
So I reached out to them. They got back to me and they said, dude, we would love it. That would be amazing. Here's, we're not really going to have the clown in the movie, but there was a scene, and I guess I can tell it now because it looks like they've gone in a different direction.
Yeah.
That apparently they were supposed to find all these articles in the attic, that like the TV that you see at the end of the movie or whatever, the TV, and you were going to see the clown in a box.
Oh yeah.
But it was not going to have really any interaction. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, killer. I said, well, here's, they said, well, ship it, we'll ship it out, blah, blah. I go, no. This is how it's going to happen. I have to go with it. I'll be there, because what you're saying is obviously only going to take a day to film.
Right.
So send me out with it. I want to be there, basically clown wrangler. I want to supervise, because I know these motherfuckers. I know prop guys. I know they will mold that in general. They will mold that head so fast, and everybody will have a copy of it. No. I'm not taking my eyes off this fucking thing. So all they would have had to do is fly me out, put me up, and have me there to supervise, and it would have been a done deal for one day. And they were too cheap to do it. So
wow.
I just said, they said, well, no, we still want to use it. We'll make sure it gets taken care of. I go, no. I said, the head's porcelain, by the way.
Yeah.
It's hollow porcelain. So if it falls
one mistake and it's game over for this
12 inches from the ground and you drop it, it could shatter.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking that chance.
Yeah, not worth it.
And I've been, and I'm sure we've all been on film sets.
Oh yeah, we're still
prop guys. They don't take care of shit. They throw stuff around
because they think it's expendable after the film.
Yeah. So that's why I didn't.
I do want to ask you. I know we're getting to fan questions. What's too much money to ask for things? Because I know Romero's pretty high plasma. The one that bothered me as a fan, because I am a fan, was when really recently at Monster Palooza, and Rutger Hauer was in the one room, and I walked in. It wasn't about him personally, but I walked in and it was $70. And what I noticed is no one's fucking there, because no one can afford $70. And even though the cool thing was it was all going to a charity, but the reality is if I'm going to walk into a room and give Rutger Hauer $70, he is going to give me a fucking hand job. Yeah. He's going to bleach his hair blonde.
Elric gets really cheap hand jobs.
He's going to do it on a roof with blonde hair in the rain. But, and I was like, what the hell? Like, $70 is a lot of money.
Well, here's the thing. This might as well tackle this topic right now about the fees or what they're charging.
Yeah, because that's one of the questions.
Because mine was, sorry to interrupt, but Stallone at New York Comic Con charging $500. Yeah. That's where I was like, are you fucking insane? Somebody's going to pay $500 to like say hi to Stallone for like 2 minutes and then have him be like, next.
And here's the thing. They sold out.
I know.
So
Unbelievable.
bottom line is the market dictates the price. And, you know, like people have complained that Reedus is too high. Reedus charges $80. All right. And, you know, quite honestly, I don't set the prices. Right. I know people think I set the prices. The client sets the prices, and I fight with them to keep them as low as possible. That's why if you look at, I got 200 plus clients. I probably only have on that list of 200 plus clients, there's probably only 20 that charge over $20. All right. So I try my best to keep it down. I also try my best to also get a free photo with the autograph. I mean, I have a couple. I mean, with Reedus, here's the thing. We just don't have the time. It's impossible. Yeah. I mean, literally, we're turning away people that just want his autograph. If we stopped and posed with everybody, too, we'd be turning away another, 1,000 fans that, he would rather have them get the chance to meet him than have to turn them away. Now, I mean, quite honestly, we could go up to 150 on Reedus right now, and people would pay it. We could probably go to 200 and people would pay it. But I'm doing my best to keep it low.
I'm always curious, and this is purely financial decision. Yeah. Like, do you think you would get? I was curious, like with Romero. Okay, sitting there, I'm thinking like, if you're asking for 80, and you have like there's 100 people in line, that's great. But if you ask for 40, maybe there'd be 500 in line.
But you're saying
you
Romero
might make more money. I'm just talking about.
But
people,
the point is, no matter Reedus is at a period where he's so big that no matter what they charge, he's still not going to be able to get to everybody.
That's an anomaly, though. I mean, that's not the norm.
Yeah, it is an anomaly
because.
Sure.
My reasoning with my clients, the lower tiered ones, is because the ego comes into play big time in coming with setting prices. I remember being at a show with a particular actor who's a well-respected, well-known actor, sitting across from somebody who was maybe victim number 8 in Friday the 13th Part 5. You know what I mean? And them going, dude, that chick's charging $20. I'm charging $20. I should be charging more than her. I'm on a current TV show. And that's all she's done. I've done like 50 films. It's kind of hard to argue that. And then they see someone else charging more than them who's a less celebrity. And that's when they go, dude, if that guy's charging 30, I should be charging 30. And then I have to get it. I have to massage the ego. I have to then have that talk. And I say, look, a lot of times, my reasoning is, here's the thing. You charge 30, you're going to turn away X amount of fans that are going to walk up and go, fuck, he's 30? I'd buy him I'd get it if he was 20. And you're also going to turn away fans that would, I would have bought 2 for 40. So then you're losing that $10 sale. So my reasoning with them is, would you rather charge more and be less busy at your table and be sitting there twiddling your thumbs a few times, or be busy all weekend, make your fans happy, and probably make the same amount of money at the end of the day?
That's exactly what I think. And I think even more. I think, honestly, if people like say we're charging 40 instead of 8, for certain types, not Norman, obviously, but like Romero, I think it would keep going because I think you would make more just because more people can afford that.
Yeah.
Well, I think the one thing we're not touching upon when it comes to this is there's certain people that, I'm not going to name names. I don't even have any really good stories, but there's certain people that I will go to a convention and I'll pay $20 for the autograph. They'll be super sweet. They'll talk to me for 5-10 minutes. They'll take a photo with me. No problem. And then there's other people that just couldn't fucking give a shit. Tom Savini, or people like that you just go up to and they just don't want to talk to you. And it's the most heartbreaking thing when you grew up really loving their films or loving their work or whatever. And you know what? It's like, look, I'm willing to drop $20, but I also want you to know how much you mean to me. And they're just a complete shithead about it. So, I mean, obviously, I would like to assume that you don't have clients like that, but you must see it, and there are people like that. So my question to you is, for those type of people, are they just doing it for the money? Do they not want to be there? Because to me, I think it's the biggest ego boost to have people tell you how great you are all weekend.
There's some that just don't give a shit. They're there strictly for the money. And I mean, that's a very small percentage. I mean, when I think of my clients in that regard, I can only think of a couple that are just miserable bastards. And I'll tell you who those people are, off the air.
And do you book them less because of that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Of course, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, those kind of people, I only book them if and that's the other thing fans need to get through their heads. they contact me constantly and say, dude, bring so-and-so to this show. And it's like, I don't make that decision. The show does. You need to contact the show and request my client.
Right.
Because I can't just call Lloyd from Texas Frightmare and go, hey, Lloyd, guess who you're taking? You're taking blah, blah, blah. Lloyd needs to want that person. So the promoters listen to the fans. If the fans post on their Facebook pages, their message boards, whatever, email them, then they will listen to the fans' requests. And if they get enough people asking for celebrity A, then they'll contact me and say, hey, you know what? Let's bring in so-and-so.
Right.
And that's how it works. They think that I'm hoarding these people,
No, and also, sometimes politics goes into it.
Oh, dude.
I know for a fact that Chiller's in New Jersey, Monster Mania's in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, I've heard from actor friends that they're like, if I do Chiller, Monster Mania won't have me. If I do Monster Mania, Chiller won't take me.
I also know from booking Fango stuff that there are certain celebrities that don't like other celebrities, and if they find out that a celebrity has been booked, they won't show up, or you have to put them in another room.
Oh, yeah.
Or it's all
I'm sure.
crazy
I remember
high schooly stuff.
One of Corey Haim, I used to book Corey Haim all the way up to when he passed. And I mean, Feldman wouldn't be in the same room with him. And one of the last shows they did together, they actually had to put them in totally separate parts of the show.
Wow.
And and then Feldman goes on air and pretends to cry over the death of his. I mean, they hated each other. I mean, it was such
so
bullshit.
Wow.
But it's the politics, man. I mean, there's politics. There's promoters that hate each other. There's agents that hate each other. There's agents that try to blacklist other agents by, getting chummy with the promoters. Like, hey, don't work with that person. I mean, quite frankly, me and Lloyd are great right now. Lloyd wouldn't work with me for years because of a particular agent bad-mouthing me for years. Lloyd finally worked with me, gave me a shot. By the second night of that weekend, him and his wife came up to me and said, man, I can't believe that we waited this long to work with you. You're like the easiest guy to work with, and you're reliable, which is the most important thing. You're easy and reliable.
Yeah.
And now, every year we're working together, and it's just politics. And, there's a lot of that shit going on. I mean, me personally, I've got people I don't like, sure. But I don't try to blacklist anybody as long as you don't step on my toes. And when I say step on my toes, trying to steal my clients, then I'm totally fine with you. I mean, there's just one guy who's notorious for saying he reps people that he doesn't rep. His name's Timothy Beale. I said his name. And I mean, he's got such a bad reputation that he goes by aliases. He goes by Terry Neal, Terry Tate. He's gone by all these different names, but he's not smart enough to send a different client list to the promoters. So when promoters get the exact same client list from a different name, they immediately know it's him. I mean, he's kind of a moron. But I mean, like,
what's
he's
the end game
tell
for
us
a
what
guy
you
like
really
that?
think.
If you have time,
to be honest with you, I really
Just
don't know.
stupid?
Well, he books a lot of low level people, and if he ever gets a good name, which every once in a while he'll score somebody legit, he loses them after one show because somebody will swoop in and steal him from him because he doesn't know no better.
Right.
But like for years, he still says he represents Vivica Fox. Vivica's never met him. Vivica doesn't know him. Vivica's only worked with me. I mean, I actually had to have a restraining order put against the guy because he threatened to kill me and he threatened to kill a couple of my clients. I mean, not that I'm afraid of the guy. I'm not. I just did it to fuck with him.
Right.
But it's guys like that. I don't understand. Like you said, what's the end game?
Right.
I mean, he actually does legitimately book a couple people. Just do it legit.
Yeah, do your thing. Work it small and
that's him.
Let it grow.
Do your thing.
We'll be posting his face on Facebook.
No, we're not taking sides.
I want to ask you as a fan, because now, I know there's no way not to get over it a little bit, like the fun part of it. It's now a job and all that. But is there somebody out there besides Jamie Lee at one point who you would just die to have do even one convention? Someone who doesn't usually do that stuff, who you're just a fan of.
Well, of course, there's
who can't get in the room with.
I mean, who wouldn't love to have Johnny Depp? I mean, can you imagine those lines?
Right.
I'd pay $500.
I mean, a lot of people would. But
is there somebody who just who's attainable?
Someone who's
who just
attainable,
do it. Who's like, I don't do that kind of shit.
Attainable, but won't do it. Like I would think Michael C. Hall,
that's a good
Dexter.
example.
I
You
would
think
think
he'll do it? You don't think he'll?
he hasn't. I mean,
That's surprising. I just assumed he had.
yeah. I mean, that's an idea.
Hey, Rob.
Okay. Ted Levine. There's one.
Yeah.
That's a guy I've legitimately wanted. And you would
he's
think,
a real actor for sure.
yeah. I mean, but for whatever reason, he's not interested. I mean, you get that, but you would
Give
think
him a box of lotion and
a basket of lotion.
basket of lotion. Yeah.
But no,
But he's also been in a lot of Aja's in the Hills of Eyes, and he's been in a lot of genres. He would be good. I agree. I think he'd be someone I'd be curious to meet.
I mean, dude, he was in The Mangler. Come on.
Mike Williamson,
The Mangler.
You and Mike Williamson. That's it.
Wait, was she a great big fat person? I mean, come on. Who wouldn't want to hear him say that?
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
The girl in the pit I ran into at Pinkberry one day here in
yeah?
Los Angeles, and it was one of these weird moments where she turned around and I was like, oh, it's you. And I had this short recollection where I thought I knew her, and then I realized I didn't know her. I've just seen her in a movie half a dozen times.
Like, where's Precious?
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was like one of these, like, I recognize you from, oh, wait, I don't actually know you.
All right, what do you think, rapid fire fans? I think we have to do
Questions.
Rapid
Let's get to the
fire questions.
We got
Let's
so
go.
many. This could be the most questions we've ever
And I
gotten
think
for
they
any
deserve it.
guest
So
ever.
as long as Sean's standing, fire away.
All
right.
right. I've got some things I'd like to throw in, but
Okay,
hopefully
cool.
they're related to the questions.
Okay, so BJ, our good old buddy BJ.
BJ.
Let's have him be
Colangelo.
first.
Colangelo.
Colangelo.
Not Colangio.
No,
Colangelo.
Colangelo.
No, I
You
like
say
Colangio.
our most non-LA person mentioned on the show, as she tweeted. She wants to know, what are your feelings about, let's see, let me make sure I get this right. What are your feelings about the people that show up as guests at dozens and dozens of festivals throughout the year and charge the same prices yet haven't done anything substantial? I know what she's talking about, and it's kind of touches upon what you just said, meaning somebody that has a huge body of work against somebody that might have popped up in a horror movie as a kid for 30 seconds at some point in their life.
Yeah.
And, they're charging just as much, if not maybe more, than somebody like Doug Bradley, who is a legitimate.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I know a lot of fans say, why do you keep booking so-and-so? He's at every fucking show. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those dudes that is it a he or she? Is it that she's talking about? Beg and plead for table space and bring themselves out and put themselves up. And a lot of them, I mean, it's kind of sad. A lot of them, they'll do it for what little money they make, but a lot of them are just going to try to get laid. I mean, to be perfectly honest. And there's a lot of weird chicks out there that would like to fuck a Jason or a Michael Myers or a Leatherface or whatever,
So I've heard.
Yeah,
One of those.
Elric's one of them.
Yeah.
He's getting hand jobs from Rutger Hauer.
I mean,
damn
I'm
right.
not saying that that's what those guys are doing, but believe me, I've had crazy fangirls come up and say that that's their fantasy, And
I've definitely seen some of these guys at the bar after hours. I won't mention names, but one of them got in a fist fight at Sacramento. I may have had a conversation about him with Tiffany Shepis.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen him attempting those things
Nicholas
at
Brendon?
numerous cons.
Speaking of Tiffany Shepis, I just want to say, Tiffany, sorry, I'm just going to stop coming by your place. I didn't mean to bother you.
Oh, you're the stalker. Okay.
Were you driving the car or were you the big dude?
I heard the episode and I was
Right.
very embarrassed.
You
Thanks
got
for
from
not
Dark
naming
Dells.
me. Yeah, I just said, I'm here from Dark Dells. And funny story. I actually did bump into her at her apartment, the one that I think she was describing, because Andrew Cash used to live just a few
Right.
doors down from her.
Yeah.
And we bumped into her one day. So I did
It's
actually
you.
You
bump
and
into her.
Cash were stalking her.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
All right, McReady Mike asks, Sean, why isn't there a sign in front of every celebrity listing their prices for an autograph? Because sometimes it gets really awkward always asking what they charge.
Is that McCready, Mike?
Yep.
Okay.
McCready. Well, sorry. McCready, I should have gotten that right.
Well, all I can say is all my clients do, because I'm the one who makes the price sheets and gives them the little standees to put on their tables. If they choose not to use them, which has happened sometimes, that's the client. I mean, I can't force them to. I mean, I've had clients change their price at the show, and I argue with them and fight with them about it. I recently had a client ask if he could work with another agent. it's kind of a long story. I don't want to get into what it was about, but there was a legitimate reason. It had nothing to do with me. And I said, oh yeah, if he can get you in a couple shows that I don't work with that are non-horror, whatever, I'm cool with it. And that agent then talked my client into charging more money and charging an extra fee to take a photo. And it's like, fuck, really? Yeah. I mean, there's these agents that just gouge. I mean, there's a couple agents that have been kind of known as con killers because they will take their celebrity, demand a crazy guarantee, and take advantage of a new promoter, say Ma and Pa, who are, we're going to do a show here in Alabama or whatever. And like, oh, wow, we'd like to have so-and-so. And okay, and they think it's all good. And they sign these contracts. Next thing you know, they're in for $20,000 with this guy and have to put a second on their house to pay him back. And of course, they're never going to do another convention again. I mean, to people who are going into the convention business, if you think you're going to put on a show, you better be prepared to lose money probably the first 3 years before you're going to see a profit. But that's what I don't do. I don't take advantage. Believe me, I get so many conventions. I mean, every day I'm getting a call from somebody saying, hey, man, I'd like to get Norman Reedus to our show, and we're going to have at least 500 people there. And, I have to kind of then say, hey, look, you need to start a little smaller, and this is who you could probably afford, and what are you trying to do? And I will help them build a show. I won't throw a big name at them and say, okay, here's a contract. You have to pay them X amount of money and know that I'm going to fuck them. There's agents that will legitimately do that and don't care. They just want to get paid. And that's shitty. I'm not that guy.
And also possibly bad business because then you're killing your repeat business, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you get the 20 grand, but you'll never get it from that account again.
I think those people's thought process is these are a bunch of idiots that don't know what they're doing. They're probably not going to last one show anyway. I might as well rape them.
What I can.
And that's fucked up.
Yeah. No, that's awful.
And I will say, there is a huge saturation in conventions right now.
How many do you do? You're on the road
almost every weekend.
Almost every weekend.
I mean, I rarely, if I'm lucky, I have one weekend off a month.
Wow.
There is a huge saturation.
And I've got sometimes 5 conventions going in one weekend. I have girls that work with me, the Shantaraj, and they're like, for example, tomorrow I'm going to Florida. Wizard World Indianapolis is happening this weekend. Zara and Gabby are going there with Sean Patrick Flannery and David Delarocco. So, I've got 2 shows this weekend. I think I've got like 4 in one weekend coming up pretty soon.
Wow.
I mean, it's
Would you
it's
ever
crazy.
put on a con?
I have. I did the Halloween ones.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't wish that job on anybody. I mean, God bless people like Lloyd and, Nathan Hanneman and Kevin Clement from Chiller and all those guys. It's a thankless job. I mean, a lot of those, there are a lot of promoters who have massive, massive fucking egos and consider themselves like rock stars and carry themselves like rock stars. There's a lot of agents that do it too. A lot of them probably accuse me of it, but my argument to them is I actually legitimately have done something that, merits some fandom, whether it be my movie or Horror's Hall Grounds or whatever. What have you done? You just book motherfuckers.
Right.
So, when they kind of go, they get all, and they see me signing an autograph at a show. Here's the thing. I bring pictures to shows because fans ask me to. I bring about 300 a show. I give them all away. They're all free. I'm spending about $300 per show to give stuff away.
Right.
You want to call me a douche for doing that? Cool. Call me a douche. Yeah. I'm giving shit away.
Part of the other thing I wanted to bring up that I forgot before when I said I was at your house is that, like, legitimately, and Sean is in bigger shock than most of us about this, he gets so many, like, handmade gifts sent to him, like things like people make dolls of Sean. And like I've seen it firsthand. I was like, somebody say this. He's like, I don't know, man. They send it to me.
Sadly, none have actual inputs. So
you get candy from your fans too. Like I remember there was one night you brought Dead Right Horror Trivia candy to Dead Right Horror Trivia that one of your fans had made. You were like, oh no, the fan's legit. I swear, I've had a couple of fans send me shit in the mail, and I'm like, I'm scared to eat this. I'm just going to put it outside, like it's a letter bomb or something. So
well, remember all all the dog treats I brought that was all fan gifts.
Yeah, when we did for Dead Right Horror Trivia at Christmas, I always do some type of like a charity drive along with the event. And this year I was like, let's give something to the SPCA. And everyone was supposed to bring a dog toy. And Sean walked in with like a car trunk full of dog toys. And I was like, your dog really likes toys.
I mean, I get so many dog toys for my dogs. So I just went through and I picked out the ones that I thought were too big for them because they're little dogs, or the ones I know that they can tear up easily and it'll just be a mess that I got to clean up. And I gave you those. So, I mean.
We took like 5 like big boxes full to the SPCA.
I just got to throw it out there.
Love.
We've had fans send us beer, but we will gladly take beer,
Dolls.
more beer.
Yeah,
and anything else.
I don't know, guys.
Doll.
I've had things sent to my house before, and even like the Fango office. And
no, we're not talking about
when it's like
naked
when it's
Not a single naked picture.
I get creeped out.
Well, when it's
I want naked pictures.
when it's homemade,
Sexed, whatever, just naked picture.
when it's homemade food, that's a little dicey. But I get a lot of packaged candy and stuff, especially from Japan. So,
We got prints last week from one of our fans.
really nice.
That,
was a great
fucking
one.
kicked
That
ass.
was
Awesome. The
Yeah.
Exorcist 3 print was amazing.
That was awesome.
I so am grateful for all that stuff. I mean, the fact that anybody gives 2 shits about me or what I do is. Thank you. I mean, I'm
that is great. That is great.
It's humbling, quite humbling.
Okay, questions. More.
Yes.
Let's see.
Throwing them at me.
Lauren Elizabeth Irwin. It's a good question for all of us probably, but what convention would you recommend to someone that has never been to one before? I really want to go. I just feel a bit intimidated by them.
Well, I'm assuming, since this is a horror podcast, that she's asking for a horror convention recommendation.
She's a fan. She's been listening.
Let's see where she is. She lives in New Orleans.
Great, guys. Now they know her location.
Texas, probably, right?
Well, no, I mean, somewhere near her.
Well, I mean, Texas Frightmare is a great show.
Great.
Horror Hound is a great show. The Cincinnati or Indie show. I mean, those are all solid horror conventions if you want to break your cherry.
If you're in the South, you're also pretty close to Dragon Con, which is kind of a lot to take in the first time.
That's not a good first show.
Okay.
That'll probably overload or
I
head will
fucking
explode.
love Dragon Con, but okay, you know what? It's kind of like an expert show. Like, you have to know what to go there, and it's kind of crazy.
I, as a first-time real convention guy, I thought Texas, the first one I went to as anyone doing something, I love Texas. I had real fun.
Yeah.
Got laid back. I liked all the guests. I mean, I don't know if he's one of your clients, Terminator 2.
Robert Patrick?
Yeah.
I was in the bathroom and I made him laugh. And
He's
I
in
felt
my
really good
movie.
about that. I was at the urinal and I made him laugh and I was like, I feel pretty good. I just made Robert, Patrick laugh.
Last year I did Arizona Comic-Con, or it was Phoenix Comic-Con.
I remember, yeah.
I gotta say, it was one of the best shows I did last year. And I was kind of shocked because when they called me, I was like, Phoenix in July. And I mean, and granted, I stepped out of my car and the thermostat on my car said 120, and I could not believe it was real. It was.
Yeah.
It was 120.
Arizona's legit.
But that was a really tight con. I had such a good time there.
Yeah, I mean, Comic-Con wise, the Wizard shows are solid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's, but horror convention, a good starter show, Frightmare, or either of the Horror Hounds, and you can always guarantee a good time.
Yeah, I think that's
And
good.
I also have to give a plug to a lot of the haunted house cons, which a lot of horror fans don't
Transworld
go to.
and stuff.
Transworld's kind of an industry show. Like,
yeah.
I don't think you can get in if you're just like a fan, but like some of the haunted house shows, Eastern Haunters Con is amazing. There's a Midwestern Haunters Con that's more of a fan. Even Scare LA here in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
These are really fun cons. And it's not, you'll see horror booths there. Like, I mean, we of course still go and set up for the magazine and everything, and you'll still see some fans or celebrities there signing and everything. But I love it because they set up haunted houses on the convention floors at most of these that you can walk through.
If you make it interactive, that's cool too. That's what I like about Monster Palooza is their museum is like, I feel that's worth the price of admission.
Well,
You get to see something
Monsterpalooza,
cool.
the thing with Monsterpalooza is their advantage is they're here. They're in LA.
Angeles?
Elliot's from New York.
Yeah.
He comes here to do the show because all the effects guys are here.
Yep.
So you're not going to get those guys to trek that shit over to
No
East
way.
Coast.
No, definitely not.
So, I mean, he has an advantage. He's got his niche, he's got it And it's a great show. Granted, it's mostly industry people.
I always consider that one an industry show.
Like the art
fans
show,
go.
Yeah.
It's like an industry show that fans are allowed to go to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But like most of the people I know go there to like network and, hey, shit, I didn't know you were working on this. Your sculpt looks cool. It's very,
It's more of an artist show.
Yeah.
It is,
for
but
sure.
I actually got the last one. I did the panels for Phantasm and Texas Chainsaw, and I saw the fan side through and through. Like everybody in that room was diehard fans, so it was a lot of fun. Ron Kompenstein says, it seems that guys like Adam Green and Joe Lynch, who are here, are in the minority when it comes to not charging fans. And I've heard Adam say that certain people treat them badly that may or may not be from a zombie TV show. Anyways, just curious what you and Sean's thoughts are on this. Also ask Sean what films he'd like to do Horror Hallowed Ground on that he hasn't already.
Well, let's
Do
start.
people that charge less money or free get treated differently by some of your other clients that charge more money? I guess that's what the question is.
Well, I will say, I'm not going to say specifically my clients, but I've seen celebrities get pissed at other celebrities who don't charge or are charging less, like underselling, stuff like that. I mean, yeah,
it makes them look bad.
It makes them look bad. But I haven't ever personally seen Adam or Joe get treated poorly. I mean, like I know Pat Healy and AJ Bowen are going to be doing Horror Hound, and they're not going to be charging. But what a lot of fans don't know, and this is coming directly from Nathan Hanneman, the promoter, if it wasn't for bringing in the bigger names like a Norman Reedus, who then the hardcore fans complain about, he brings in fucking all these people that aren't horror fans, soccer moms, blah, blah, blah. It's because of bringing in big names like that and ticket sales increasing that they have the money to bring in an AJ Bowen and let him sign for free. You know what I mean? Because it's an expense. I mean, it's just like, somebody was complaining online recently, fucking quit bringing in these Walking Dead people, bring in some more like obscure people like a Wayne Doba or some of the people I said that don't do very well. Yeah. But, there's hardcore horror nerds that want to see those people. It's selling tickets and ticket sales that dictate them having the money to do that. Because at the end of the day, it's a business. Nobody's in this business to lose money. Any of these shows that claim to be by the fans, for the fans, they're doing it for the money. I mean, they might be fans. They may be doing it for fans. But at the end of the day, they're doing it for money. I mean, that's what we're all in it for at the end of the day. Right. Sure, we're having fun doing it, but it's a fucking business. It's how we make a living. Nobody goes to McDonald's because they love to make burgers. You know what I mean?
To be honest, it's a lot like doing our podcast. We do this for the money. We kind of like it. I wouldn't say love. That's a big word. But we like it, and we get paid very, very well.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not going to lie to you. We get paid.
You guys are lying to me.
Says him driving around in his Beamer.
We keep buying him cheap beer. So next question.
By the way, when am I getting paid for this? I'm just curious.
So
That's my fee.
Last year at Days of the Dead, Los Angeles, I know they brought in Clive Barker, who was signing for free. But if you ask any of the fans there, every single one said they were there for Barker. So, I mean, I guess, it balances out.
Yeah, I guess it really just depends on the level, celebrity, how many people they're going to bring through the door, as opposed to how much money you can make and all that.
Yeah, I mean, for every, like Reggie Bannister or Ari Lehman, you need to bring in a Norman or a Michael Rooker or, a Robert Patrick, or, you need to have a balance, because you can't just book the show full of people like Brian Andrews and, the guy that played Michael Myers in one scene and expect to pack the place. Because, at the end of the day, you have expenses.
Yeah.
You know
who would kill it? Eva Green right now. Eva Green would be really interesting. She's in, what's that? That's that TV show from last year that, with Josh Hartnett and everything.
Well,
she's
Scarlet.
Penny Dreadful.
Penny Dreadful.
She's good in everything, playing the crazy, because she's like the new Johnny in a way. But
I just watched
that
it.
show,
But she was just hot in that show.
Yeah. Oh, she's good.
I just watched the 300 prequel, which was really gory as hell and really fun. And she's great in it. Yeah,
I'll give you everything I have if you can get Sam Neill and Isabella Johnny to
Sam Neill.
Hey, I would love to work with Sam Neill.
I mean, he
well,
does
at
have his wife.
Possession Con 2015.
Here's the thing. This is, and this is another thing I wanted to touch on too, is, getting back in the day, getting to these celebrities. Like if I wanted a Sam Neill, I needed to get to Sam Neill.
Right.
Because if I call his agent, they're going to blow me off.
Totally.
It's beneath them. Their client doing I mean, dude, Norman's people still tell him, conventions, that's a bad look.
Right.
And it's like, no, it's not a bad look.
He's growing his fan base.
Yeah, he's built a grassroots fan base. Yeah. They love him, and it's like they're friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now the thing that's changing, and this is fans complain about prices going up and this and that. It's gonna get worse, and you know why it's gonna get worse? Because the agencies are getting involved now. Oh. The big agencies like the CAAs of the world and shit like that, they're now opening personal appearance divisions. Oh. They're now putting it in the contracts of brand new clients. So if you're a fresh-faced kid that just signed with CAA, and maybe you haven't hit it big yet, when you signed with them, you've also signed for personal appearances. They've got you. So when you hit it big on your show like Gotham, for example, those people are already tied in to their agency. And those agents... Those people, those are the ones that are going to really rape the convention promoters. And they already have been. And that's why prices are going up and these big Comic-Cons are charging more, because the agencies are now starting to set the standards, which
makes sense to get into it because they see money's being
and
made.
They'll be asking for that hummus that Bekah was talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, and really,
the Hummus Fairness was actually a band.
Yeah.
It wasn't it was a celebrity. It was a band who I had to get them a particular type of hummus that was only sold at Whole Foods.
Well, you
I'm
could
sorry.
get
Did
through
you
Twitter,
cough? What do you guys cough? Slipknot? Is that
I
what you
did.
said?
No, it wasn't Slipknot.
Okay. That
It
guy seems
wasn't
like a
Slipknot.
dick.
I'll tell you who it was afterwards.
I don't care.
Wait, who was the next one?
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Listen, we have so many more questions. I got to just get a few more out.
There was a point I was just about to make though.
The agencies are getting involved.
Agencies, and and they're going to weed guys like me out eventually. I will only probably be able to get like the what quote unquote has-beens the new people like the Normans are going to be unattainable.
And yet most of us want to go for what they call the has-beens.
Right. Well,
I want to see Kelly Maroney. I want to see Kelly Maroney. I want to see, it's fun to me. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Let's see. Karen Holman asks, would you ever consider taking a special event con, something like the Halloween anniversary did, on the road, including overseas to places like Australia or the UK? Which, on top of that, what are conventions like overseas? I mean, do you do a lot of those events?
Okay. I do all over the world.
So what's the difference between UK ones and stuff like that? And would you take things like the Halloween reunion overseas?
No.
Too much trouble.
Too expensive.
It's too expensive. I mean, here's the thing. And I forgot we skipped over the What Horrors Hall Grounds episode.
Oh, right,
I want to do.
right.
Children of the Corn. All right. I'd like to do a Phantasm one too, like as far as an episode.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing. Reunions are awesome. Like a Halloween convention is awesome, but it's only feasible to do here because most of the cast are here. You can't put all your eggs in one basket as a promoter. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if you, for example, if you do a convention and you have Nick Castle and Tommy Lee Wallace, Charles Cyphers, and let's say Jamie Lee Curtis, you're probably going to draw just as many Halloween fans for those four as you would if you brought in 20 people from the Halloween franchise. You know what I mean? The Halloween fans are going to come. So you need to spread it out. That's why you bring in people from different types of movies, different types of shows, because you want to draw in a massive audience because you're trying to sell something. You're trying to make money. It wouldn't make sense to put your eggs all, in one basket and just hope that, because you're only going to get Halloween fans if you do a Halloween reunion. The other negative is, it's been my experience with doing the UK shows that horror isn't that hot there.
Interesting.
The horror people I've brought to the UK do so. People that you would think that here just kill it. Over there, it's weird. You never know who's going to do what where. Like, for example, Robert Nepper, from Prison Break, Heroes, recently on the Arrow and Flash, playing the Clock King, I think. He is a fucking rock star in the UK. I mean, it's like walking down the street with Reedus. People are like, oh my God, they're freaking out. Huh. Here, he's popular, but there he's like a superstar. You just never know.
Is that a TV thing? Is just TV more popular in the UK?
I don't know what's on syndication. I mean, same dude, like Charmed people, like Brian Krause is one of my clients. I used to work with Shannon Doherty and Holly Marie Combs. In Australia, fucking massive.
Yeah,
I mean, they
Charmed?
played a long time
and
there.
France. In France, massive. Here,
Wow.
okay.
It's like a WB show.
Yeah.
It's
Brian
cute.
Cross was in Camel Spiders, so that's part of it.
And Sleepwalkers.
I love
come on.
Sleepwalkers. Big fan.
Yeah.
But you just never know what's
Yeah.
going to translate, you know?
That's true.
Yeah. All right, let me.
I mean, and dude, every client I have, well, dude, I saw you just went to Japan. I'm massive in Japan. Yeah, sure you are. Everybody thinks they're massive somewhere else,
Right.
you know, so.
That's fine.
Amanda Oakes, one of our listeners, who has met you several times and says that you're very sweet. That's at the end of the message there.
All an act.
It's all, she wants to know, convention culture has really changed over the past decade. Example, people not charging photographs to charging, bigger name celebrities, etc. What changes do you see coming in the future, whether they be good or bad?
Just what I said, just prices going up.
Keep going up.
Agencies.
I mean, I hate to say it because this is my livelihood right now, but the bubble's going to burst at some point. It's just like, you know, Rebekah was saying that there's just too many conventions happen right
Yeah.
now.
And
I mean,
most of them, I hate to say, most of the ones that I'm seeing crop up right now, last year.
Yeah.
Like last year, at least half the cons I did only were last year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we won't see them again.
And, you know, no offense to a lot of it, because I had a great time at Texas Fright Mare and all that, but it bums me out that there's so many conventions and that there's still not a Fangoria Weekend of Horrors. You know what I mean? Like that seemed like such a special thing to me.
I'll be glad to tell a story on that one briskly. So we'd been going by ourselves for a while, and then we partnered with Creation, and we had grown to a particular size here in LA because we'd always been we started out downtown and then we moved to the Burbank Marriott, and we'd been there for a while. And we were seeing numbers of like 10 to 15,000 a weekend. And it was kind of shutting down the Burbank Marriott to the point where, like, you know, we were having to limit people and not letting everybody in and things like that. And fans were getting pissed that they couldn't get in, that they would show up on Saturday and we could only let so many people in. And I mean, seeing like numbers like 10,000 people for the Burbank Marriott is freaking insane.
Yeah.
And so we were working with Creation at the time, and they moved us to the Los Angeles Convention Center, which is seriously like going from a tiny farm pond to like the Atlantic.
I remember all that.
Because the Los Angeles Convention Center, it's bigger than an airport.
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge.
It's too big for that type of thing.
And so even if we did, I mean, that first year we saw the same numbers. We saw like close to 10,000 people that first year we were at the Los Angeles Convention Center. But taking 10,000 from the Burbank, where it's frenetic and it's packed and there's just this feeling of everybody's here, to just this wide open cavernous space, it was just bizarre, and it was just a weird vibe. It wasn't what people were used to with FangoCons. It wasn't what people wanted. You had to walk a mile to get to the convention hall.
You can find the panels.
No, no one could find
so
any of the
big.
panels because they were at the other end in like the South Hall, and we were in like the West Hall. And so people are walking all over the place trying to find panels. So the panel attendance was really poor, and then no one really knew what to make of it. And additionally, when you move to a convention center like that, there's a lot of fees that people don't anticipate that we didn't have at the Burbank Marriott.
Yeah.
Parking. It costs
Parking is the
$30
big
to
one. All of
park
a
at
sudden
the
everybody
LA Convention
jacks
Center.
their
And I
prices up.
remember one of the biggest problems with that particular show was there was like a Kings or a Lakers game happening at the same time, which pushed the prices up.
Yeah.
And there was also, I remember there was some type of bridal show going on in the convention center at the same time. Like, it was just
Fucking
this clusterfuck
bitches.
of nightmare. And so, yeah,
dare
there's
they
like
get married.
a bridal show and a Clippers game and just all of this chaos. And then us. And then additionally, all these vendors who Fango had been working with for years and years and had built all these relationships suddenly were in this big convention center where they have to pay to park, and it takes them like a half an hour to wheel their little carts to their booth, and they can't find their booth because it's a nightmare. And we're suddenly dealing with union guys. So they're like, I remember Trauma was one of the booths there. I was like actively producing the shows with them by this time. And I remember when Lloyd went to plug in his little television so that he could show, you know, his Trauma trailers during the con, and a union guy was standing there and was like, I have to do that for you. It'll be a $20 charge. All of a sudden I'm like, all of these vendors are like yelling at us because there's all of these charges and they're refusing to pay. And it's the same thing with the celebrities too. Like, this union guy says, I'm not allowed to carry my box across the convention floor. I'm not allowed to have my dolly on the convention floor and things like that. And these are actual like union regulations. And it was just the biggest nightmare show. And so that was our last one. We decided after that we weren't going to work work with Creation anymore, and we just stopped doing shows.
And I also think a part of the death of the whole Fango Weekend of Horrors in L.A., was mainly it was because of moving the show so much.
We talked about that while you were...
Well, I was PPing. Because fans become... Like it's back to the nostalgia thing. They want to go back to that place, that bar. They want to go to. They want the familiarity.
I know, and I just talked about how it reached the point with the Burbank Marriott where we were packing in 10,000 people on a weekend, and we were turning people away at the door, and people were getting pissed, and we were selling tickets thinking that people would come and leave, but they weren't. They were just staying. So then we couldn't let in other people, and it was just a nightmare. So then when we moved to the convention center, it was like putting a drop in the middle of this gigantic ocean of everything else going on.
Was that the LA airport one or?
Not the LA airport. We were at the convention center downtown.
The Argento one was Marriott.
Marriott, that's right. She was a good guest. Her talk was amazing.
I thought you meant her dad.
But
it blew my mind.
I remember seeing our panels at like the Burbank Marriott, or even when we did the Secaucus shows, it was still a much, much smaller venue. Yeah. And at the time we were still doing shows in Chicago. And I mean, our Chicago shows, it was a much smaller venue.
That was a good one too.
I love the Chicago shows. They were great. It was cold, but it was cool.
I think Sean hit the nail on the head in terms of the change. Because I loved for many years as a teenager growing up going to the New York City one right across the street from Penn, but obviously that's an expensive venue.
It's insane.
There were years where there was 2 years you tried in Brooklyn to do a show in New York, and then it moved to Jersey, and then another part of Jersey, and it was all over the place. And then you're like, what the hell? And also, if I'm not mistaken, Fango also tried to up it to 2 a year.
Yep.
Which was kind
a big mistake.
Then it's too much trying to do 2 shows a year.
That was once we started working with Creation, because Creation, I mean, obviously, as we talked about, they're a business. They're in it for the money. They do 2 Star Trek shows a year. They do 2 Supernatural shows a year. So let's do 2 Fango shows a year.
Right.
And it's a lot more work on us suddenly, because it's no longer just once a year we have to book this amazing guest. Like once a year, we'll get a Fulci or somebody like that. Yeah. It's suddenly like, okay, well, we're going to have to book like a Takashi Miike at every single one. So we always have that kind of black sheep that nobody's seen before.
Yeah.
But the big killer for us was just that final Los Angeles show where we were just, it was dealing with the unions and everybody had to pay more, and it was just a very grumpy show.
Right.
And that was just kind of it for us. We were just like, what? We'll stop for a while. We'll see when it's ready to come back.
More quick fires?
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't want to leave any of if there's any.
There's so many, but we actually covered a lot of these in our discussion. Again, I just wanted to say really quickly that, I missed the Fango shows. The thing I love about Monster Palooza, which is the one out here in Burbank, which still manages to stay in that same Hilton Marriott hotel. I'm sorry. Elliot is also a fellow Long Islander and a good guy, and he always asks me to do panels. I try to recommend, I don't have no problem with the reunion panels and stuff. I love doing that stuff, but I try to recommend new films as well. It's like, hey, there's a new Hatchet movie coming out. Let's do a panel with that too. And try to get the balance between celebrating the old and then at the same time previewing the new. Sean, from your experience, like in going to the conventions, can we ever get back to that again, to what the old Fangos are like?
I don't think we can, because of the internet. Because we get so much of the media from the internet that
straight away.
We're getting the trailers, we're getting clips, we're getting interviews. By the time they're at the show to promote the thing, we've kind of heard all about it. At that point, we want the nostalgia. We want to see our heroes. So unfortunately, a lot of these newer up and coming films don't get the love they used to. Like we were. Back in the day, man, we didn't see a poster. We wanted to know what it was about, and we're in there like sitting in our seat, all stoked, and it just, people say, I remember back when, I get it all the time. I remember when they didn't charge, blah, blah. I remember fucking gas was 75 cents too. But, I'm not
cigarettes, $1.50 a pack.
I don't yell at the guy at the gas station every time I go fill up, But, unfortunately, change. It's inevitable, and I don't think we're ever going to get back to the golden days of that's the one thing for me that is the biggest letdown is that magic is totally gone for me. It's a job now. Sure, I have fun. Sure, I have some crazy fucking experiences. I've you were talking earlier about fucking Deodato. I went to fucking dinner with him at Red Lobster. I mean, that was surreal. You know,
the turtle for you and ripped it over. Here's your lobster.
I did this once in a movie.
I ordered turtle and anyway. But it's like, you know, I have these weird experiences because of the circle I'm in that I get to experience beyond the convention, which is a fucking trip. And I get to see shit and hear shit, you know, that you would never believe, you know, and some of it is awesome and some of it is fucking frightening, you know, and I don't know, it's cool, but like you're saying about the assholes that you've met, or, you know, I mean, talk about ruining things for me, having to work with them and really seeing that ugly side of certain people. Talk about just killing your dream, you know, somebody that you looked up to and you realize you can't fucking stand them. You know, somebody that when your phone rang and it was them, you were like, oh my God, it's so-and-so. And now you're like, oh, fuck, you know, decline, you know. I mean, it's crazy how you change. I mean, as a horror nerd growing up, did I ever imagine in a million years I would be in the position I'm in and experience the things I experienced, like the whole Jamie Lee Curtis thing?
Yeah.
You know, going to her house. And I mean, it's just nuts. To me, that's surreal. I still have to pinch myself still, you know? I mean, the fact that I could pick up the phone and call her right now, you know? I could. But that's crazy, you know?
How late is it? Let's call
Laurie
Jamie Lee
Strode.
Curtis.
On Jamie Lee Curtis. 10:30 on a Wednesday. Let's do it, boys.
She'd probably go, why the fuck are you calling me right now?
We're talking really positively about you.
Yeah, I mean, no, she is awesome. Talk about an awesome person. I mean, just a fucking...
It comes through. Some people it just comes through, you know?
Yeah. I mean, she bagged on horror a little bit in the 90s or whatever, but...
Everyone was bagging on horror. It was the 90s. It wasn't until Scream came back that we were all like, okay, we kind of like your horror.
Yeah. Horror's cool again.
Wow.
Let me see. I know we're getting here we're winding down.
Yes.
A couple things I
We've
did.
been going like 3 hours, guys. Come on.
Almost, but this
Should
is
I
an
just let it
important
go?
topic.
Should I let it go?
No. Is there anything we didn't touch upon that you feel is important that we do?
You know, I think, you know, for some reason I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was a funny story. A certain promoter told me the other day, he goes, you know what? He said, I'm so fucking fed up with face-off contestants contacting me to thinking that they're goddamn celebrities. He said they keep calling me up and demanding free tables and blah, blah, blah. And he said he finally had it with them and told this one contestant who was being such an asshole. He goes, you fucking lost on a game show. You're not a celebrity. Don't fucking call me again. Wow. And I just thought that was hilarious. I mean, a lot of the face-off people are my friends. I mean, I rep like the judges, pretty much all of them. And they're awesome. And they're on the show and have been for 8 seasons. You know, the contestants that come and go, unless you're a winner, I don't think you really kind of merit.
I'm not familiar with it at all, but it's like I'd rather meet Greg Nicotero than somebody that was on a show.
But I just thought that story was so funny. You lost. You lost on a game show.
I gotta say, the weirdest I saw was the guy from the West Memphis 3.
Oh,
okay. He was at Texas Fright.
Was that Texas Fright?
And it just left me. I was kind of like
Damien.
No, it wasn't. It was the blonde one with glasses.
Okay.
Justin. Yeah, Justin. And it wasn't weird. I mean, he could have been there for like he might have had a book or something. That's different. But it unnerved me slightly just because they had just gotten out, and I was happy for them because they deserve a fan. Yeah. They're great survivors, you know. But it just was kind of weird seeing that crossover. Like, well, I don't know what that is, you know, because that's a documentary about real lives.
Yeah.
You know?
The bottom line is, if there is a fan base,
right?
I mean, even for the face-off contestants, I was just goofing on. If there's a fan base, God bless you. If somebody wants to pay you for your autograph and you're willing to take their money, it's America. You can do what you want. You know, go for it.
If he wants.
If I remember correctly, the Killer POV panel followed
we did do signings.
That guy.
We did do
a lot of signings.
Oh, okay.
No, it was either the Killer POV panel or the Fangoria panel followed the West Memphis 3 guy, because I remember I caught the tail end waiting, and then all these like fans mobbed him. And I remember, I think it was the Fango panel, because I was standing there with Chris like, do we kick him off stage, man? He just got out of prison.
Let him talk a little longer.
How pissy do we get about our stage time?
Well, now that we've had Sean as a guest, we're going to, after this episode, we're going to need representation. So Sean, you're our guy already.
So
kind of full right now. I can recommend
at capacity, guys.
I think I can get you Tim Beal's number.
Nice, right? Sure. If there's free booze involved, whatever.
Slam! I heard that.
One thing I didn't mention really quickly, I mean, we sort of touched upon it, but one of the interesting changes I've seen, because you represent some TV people, obviously, is that a good thing or a bad thing, getting those people through the door? Because again, I went to Monster. It's been maybe 5 or 6 years since I went to Monster Mania, and then I went to one with FearNet about a year or two ago. Mm-hmm. And it was more packed than I'd ever seen in my entire life. Well, specifically because there were 2 or 3 people from The Walking Dead.
Here's this is my opinion on it, and it's my opinion. Is it a bad thing that horror conventions are thriving? Is it a bad thing that new people are walking in the door and potentially discovering something that they didn't know about, like, up and coming filmmakers, or a film like Starry Eyes or something like that? That's great.
Yeah.
That's exposure for our genre. Why not? Yeah. And why not the people that have been busting their asses for all these years, the promoters that did it because they're fans, make a little cash? Mm-hmm. Why not? I mean, I don't think it's a negative. Mm-hmm. The only people that think of the negative are the ones that don't want to have to rub shoulders against these people at the conventions. It's too crowded now. Mm-hmm. Well, you're fucking spoiled. I mean, you maybe you were there when it was, a lot mellower or whatever. But, I say if the horror conventions can thrive, and, then that's a positive. Like I said, bringing in those bigger names helps bring in the smaller names.
Yeah.
And
it's a no-brainer. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
On that level.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's all good. I mean, I think convincing anybody that's got a fan base to come out and meet their fans, whether it be to charge or whatever you have to do to get them there to do it, that's a good thing. I want to meet my heroes. Mm-hmm. I wish I could convince certain people to come to a convention just because I want to meet them.
What do you think about the one we talked about a while back, Freddy in full gear, charging that amount? And I mean, I felt like you did, which is like totally fine if people are willing to pay it. Because
if I had the money, I
would have loved to have had that shot.
I would have taken a picture of Robert with makeup. You did it, right? You totally did.
I didn't pay, but yeah.
People know that.
That's the advantage of knowing people.
And now he's doing it again in England, right?
That's the weird thing, is saying it's a one-shot deal like the Jamie Lee thing, but then, but I'm going to go do it in England.
Well, it's overseas. I mean, you have to see the crowd's not going to be the same.
As the only...
And how many times? Do you know how many times I have seen Motley Crue's farewell tour?
Well, fuck.
I mean, it's what they do. I'm going to see them again in December, and it's again their farewell tour. No, you keep doing it.
Kiss has been on their farewell tour since '96.
Valid point.
It's how you make money.
But here's the thing. I don't know if you know about the England thing, because I'm bringing Ken Kersinger. He's one of my clients. He's doing full costume too. It's gonna be Freddy and Jason in full costume.
Cool. Together.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
If you can do separate or you can do together. And my big question, I haven't had this answered yet, but I'm assuming, and this was the one thing the fans, I don't know if you heard, the fans bitched hard. He didn't wear the sweater. He was wearing a flashback weekend T-shirt.
I hear that's a legal issue, isn't it? I thought somebody said that he can't look exactly like Freddy. I thought that was he can't for some reason, but I don't know.
Well, I guess we'll find out if he wears the sweater in England.
Yeah.
But if he does, then people are going to be pissed.
Yeah, and I'll be in that photo too. Trust me, because I'll be there.
But that's what he wasn't able to.
A cricket jersey with the little V would really be quite eloquent.
But you know what I think people are really going to freak out about is the cost. The price over in the UK for this is like 25% of what it was here.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, because now he's not
paid over there.
Well, the excuse here was it was for a charity. It was for the drive-in thing.
Yeah.
Over there, it's just for money. It's just, I mean, so I don't know. Maybe he's given some to a charity. I don't know, but
I hope so.
But it's, I mean, the people that paid crazy cash here in the U.S. are going to be pissed when they see the price.
Robert
got Freddy and Jason.
Yeah, Robert doesn't seem like he would do that, but his agent definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to comment on that.
One other thing I forgot to mention to you. I'm sorry. I know we're winding down here.
Is this our longest show, Parker?
Becca's going to leave.
I'm sorry, but when else are we going to get all these things answered? I just want to know, when did the photo op come into the picture? Because again, that was a thing where I could take a pic, I'd go and pay $20 for an autograph, person would be like, yeah, come on in, let's take a photo. But all of a sudden, I'd say in the last 2 or 3 years, that became a separate admission where it's like, you have to pay $50. That's a creation thing too?
No, actually it may be a creation thing, but I know that at the very first show I went to, like 15, almost 17 years ago, New York Comic-Con, I know that I snapped a picture of Adam West on my camera at the time. It was my very first con that I'd been to, and I didn't realize that there was like a convention etiquette, and he was like sitting at a booth, and I was like, oh, Adam West. I took a picture. A security guard walked over and said I either needed to pay for it or he was going to take my film. And this is back before cell phones, and he took the film out of my camera.
Wow.
You need to pay for that, my good man.
It was like $25 too. And I was like, no, I'm not paying for that. And they opened my camera. They opened the back of it.
You know what? Actually, that's funny you say that. The first celebrity that ever charged me was Adam West. That's the first one. That's
Maybe
the first
he
one.
started it. He is the epicenter of charging.
Batman.
And that was at the Pittsburgh, the Zombie Jamboree. Don't know why he was at Zombie Jamboree, but he was there.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, whoa, oh, really? Because, I mean, all the Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, they all signed for free. Romero signed for free. Everybody was free. Yeah. Adam West charged. That was the first one I ever paid for. That's I remember now.
Right. Adam West.
But to answer your question about photo ops,
I
know you want Bekah wants it. You can just leave, Bekah.
No,
I got
I'm doing
this.
good.
No, because I know this is something that gets asked a lot about the photo ops. Here's the thing. I mean, of all my clients, of all of them, like 200 plus, there's only one that doesn't take pictures of the table, and that's Norman. And I've explained why he doesn't. We just can't physically get through everybody. Photo ops, so I can't speak for other people that say they won't take pictures at the table and will only do photo ops. As far as my other clients are concerned, that's an option. And some fans love the professional photo op. They just love the way it looks. I think as far as reunions are concerned, it's the only way you can do it. If you got a Fright Night reunion, you got 6 people. Yeah. You can't, hey, come over here from your table and stop your line and everybody jump into my picture. You can't do that. The only way you can get that group op is a professional setting where they're all organized, and you do one fan at a time, just jam them through. That's, and for me, fuck yeah, I want that group op. That's cool. If it's something I'm really into, So that's, what they charge, and, that's their thing, I mean, that's another thing is fans of why are the photo ops so expensive? Well, an autograph, it's different. And an autograph, the only person making the money on the autograph is the person signing. Or his agent, I get a cut or whatever, right? But as far as a photo op, you have the promoter takes a cut, the photo op people take a cut, and the celebrity takes a cut.
And you usually have to reserve a separate room at the hotel to do it, so it's another area that you have to do.
Well, that
on
goes
top of
into the promoter's expense. Yeah. So there's 3 people getting paid on that, and that's why it's a little more expensive. And so people go, why the fuck is it so expensive? There's a picture with it, Well, that's why, because if you want that,
Yeah.
So this will go down as like the ultimate, like for anyone wanting to know any of this stuff, just point them to this.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I told Rob,
Yeah.
I said, I wanted to do this episode just for when I get those fucking questions I'm just going to send them the link.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, listen to this.
No, I think this is the definitive convention episode. I think we've nailed it.
Nice.
And I really appreciate Sean coming in and doing this. I know that we wanted you for a while and you wanted to come in and do it. You are on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on all those things.
Yes, on Instagram and Twitter at Malfunction. It's MALFUNCSEAN. And my Facebook, my personal one's full, but I have a official, like Facebook.com/official Sean or Sean Clark official, I think. I don't know. Who knows? And there's a Horrors All Grounds Facebook.
Yeah, don't
bother. Don't even bother.
You'll be in Florida this weekend.
This weekend, I'm actually a guest this weekend. Bekah was too, but she can't go.
I was supposed to be, and I had to cancel.
Sorry. So if you're, I know a lot of people listening to this actually said they were looking forward to meeting you both.
That's why I'm not going to rep her. She's a fucking flake.
I'm sorry.
You got to show
go say hi to Sean if you're in Florida.
Like Shock Pop
Con
in Fort Lauderdale this weekend.
And they actually have some amazing guests. And go see Chris at the Fangoria drink.
Chris Alexander will be there, yes.
Chris will still be there. We actually, our other guy who was supposed to be there also had some family problems as well. So Chris, and he's bringing down one of our other people. So
hang out with Chris, hang out with
Apparently,
Sean.
apparently Chris and I are hosting the Nightmare on Elm Street 2 panel.
Boom. That should be fun.
Well,
Yeah.
They wanted the 2 gayest guys there to do it. So, I mean,
Is Jack Shoulder there?
yeah,
that's
he's
cool.
there. Marshall Bell, Kim Myers, Mark Patton, Robert Rustler,
You gotta get
He's
some
ever in LA.
questions
It's like one of my
answered.
dream guests.
Robert Englund.
Yeah.
He's one of the guys I want most on the show.
Jack Shoulder?
Jack Shoulder?
Yeah.
I'll tell him.
Yeah.
I'll mention
Just
it to
made
him.
some fun
Yeah,
movies.
right on, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Did you do Tourist Trap?
No,
No,
that's
wait,
the guy in
who did
Vegas, the director. He lives in Vegas, teaches in Vegas. He was a Charles Band guy. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But he teaches. I see his Facebook.
Yeah. I'm drawing a blank.
He was a
but
Yeah, I am
full
too.
moon guy, wasn't he?
he was
Yeah,
full moon,
I
yeah.
can't remember his name either.
They're fighting
Mark
recently
something.
about the
But
cut.
Jack Shoulder did Hidden.
Guru.
Yeah,
Hidden.
that's
Yeah,
good. That's
that's
one of
it.
my favorite.
That's
I
a good
just love
film.
Hidden, you know.
And what's the one that just the Supernova? Hey, one of the 3 directors.
Yeah. That'd just be fun.
Thank you so much, Sean. Really appreciate
Yeah, it was
it.
cool.
Thanks everyone for listening and tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Yeah. Cheers.
Later.
Bye, guys.